Retired machine operator Gary Richmond is suing his neighbor, Monica Clark, for damage to his truck. Gary claims Monica's son, 9-year-old Austin, pelted it with rocks. Monica is countersuing for harassment and invasion of privacy.
Yeah, this is case number 190 on the calendar in the matter of Richmond versus Clark. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, gentlemen. Have seats.
Mr. Richmond, it is your claim that the defendant's 9-year-old is a little terror and threw some rocks at your truck.
Yes.
Caused damage. Miss Clark, his mother, says that he's not a little terror, he's a little angel, and that you have been harassing the family, harassing her, harassing the little boy. You've also been engaging in some sort of lewd and lascivious behavior involving her, and she is counterclaiming. How long are you living in your current house?
I've been here 11 years.
Is she your immediate next-door neighbor?
Across the street.
Now, her parents live there, according to what I've read.
Yes, they are. They are the residents.
And she moved in with her parents recently.
Yes.
When did you move in with your parents?
In November.
And prior to Miss Clark moving in, had you had any difficulty with her parents?
No.
Now, are there other neighborhood children?
Yeah, there's about 11 children in our street.
Have you ever made complaints about any of the other children?
No.
Tell me when Austin damaged your truck, what you saw.
On April 23rd at 5 p.m., I went out and caught Austin Clark throwing rocks at my truck and denying that he did it with rocks still in his hand.
Okay, that was...
And I have a police report here for it.
Was your truck damaged at that time?
Yes, it was, ma'am.
Do you have pictures of that damage?
I don't have pictures, but I have a body shop report.
Well,
and
why didn't you take photographs of it? I'm just curious, Mr.
Well, in the paint, a lot of it wouldn't come out unless you had an awful good camera.
Did you try?
I don't have a camera, ma'am.
Okay. Was that the only time that you saw him throw rocks at your truck?
No, over the past 20 months.
Can I see the police report, please, in the estimate?
There you go.
Do you use this pickup truck for your business?
No, I'm not in business. I'm retired after 43 years.
Okay. Now, you say you've had trouble over the last 20 months with Austin. Have you ever spoken to his mother before about his
I've
behavior?
talked to his mother and the grandparents when they've had him there.
What kind of conversations have you had with Miss Clark?
On April 19th was the last time I spoke to her of his actions and his grandparents.
What did you tell
Of what
them?
he'd done. His previous actions was using a hammer on, he has 16 infractions, 4 of them to me.
Like what?
He's got my car 3 different times, tearing up the antenna, power antenna on it, throwing rocks at it, throwing mud and gravel on the hood.
Now, when you spoke to Miss Clark before on the 19th, what did she say to you?
She just laughed about it and like, what you're going to do about it.
No, is that what she said? I want to know what she said to you.
That's basically what she said.
Did you go to her home, or did you meet her in the street?
No, I didn't meet her in the street. I was over helping her dad do some landscaping.
So you were friendly with her parents?
We had been.
How old are you, Austin?
9 years old.
You know this gentleman here?
Yes, I do.
Do you like him?
Yes, I do.
That's a lie. Now, you look at me very carefully, young man, because you know how many children I've had? A lot. So I can tell, like that, when somebody's not telling me the truth. And when they're not telling me the truth, I can make them very uncomfortable. Do we understand each other?
Yes.
Clearly.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to ask you that question again. Do you know this gentleman over here?
Yes, I do.
Do you like him?
No.
That's better. Why don't you like him?
Because he's blaming stuff on me.
What is he blaming on you?
He's trying to say that I threw rocks at his truck and beat his grill with a hammer.
Okay. Now, Austin, you look right here.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when you lied to me before?
Mm-hmm.
When you said you liked him? Right? You lied to me before, isn't that right?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen again, Austin.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask you specifically whether on the 23rd of April you ever threw rocks at a car. I'm going to ask you at any time, did you ever throw rocks or gravel at a car that was passing by or a truck?
No.
I don't believe you. So we're going to try it again. Because you have to know that I know the truth about everything. That's why they give me this job. We understand each other?
Yes.
Did you alone or with any of your friends ever toss rocks or gravel at a car that was driving by?
No, I did not.
Now, Austin, why would you think that this gentleman over here would say that he caught you with rocks in your hand?
I don't know.
He doesn't say that about any of the other children in the neighborhood. So why would you think that this gentleman over here would pick on a 9-year-old?
I don't know. He's been friends with me for I don't know how long. He's took me to the park in his car. He's played with me. I've played with his dog. He's gave me pop and everything like that. Now he's turning around doing this.
Well, why do you think he would do that? Do you think he's crazy?
No.
Step down. Now, do you see, Miss Clark, how easily your son said, when I said to him, do you like the plaintiff? And he said, yes, I do.
Yes. At one point he did.
No, no. I didn't say, did you used to like him? I said, do you like him? And he looked at me with those blue eyes.
Yeah.
And with the same look that he said, no, I don't like him, he said to me, yes, I do like him. He was able to lie like that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He sits in his truck and he just stares into my windows. I have to keep myself locked in my bedroom with my curtains closed because fear that he's looking at me.
What you're saying is he's a peeping Tom.
Exactly.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Gary Richmond claims neighbor 9-year-old Austin Clark damaged his truck with rocks. Austin's mom, Monica Clark, claims Gary's upset that she won't date him.
Now, you think of a reason why Mr. Richmond would, among all the neighborhood children, especially since he seemed to have liked him, why he would complain to you about your son's behavior.
He never complained to me about my son's behavior except for on the 23rd of April. When he came over in the morning, he said, I want you to come out here right now. He said, now I want you to look at this. He said he's seen him do it. I said, do you have any proof? He said
he just told you proof. He said he saw him do it.
Exactly. I said, Gary, when did this happen? He said, this happened last night. I said, well, Gary, that can't be true. I said, because I watched out my bedroom window and watched my son play off and on, and the rocks are right by my bedroom window. I would have been able to hear him. He said, no, well, then it happened sometime this morning. I said, no, Gary, that my son had no time this morning. He said, why?
Did you tell her that this happened in the morning or in the evening?
No, this is stated just like the police report says.
Well, see, the police report, Mr. Richmond,
When I caught him.
says that you reported damage to your car by an unknown person. And you had seen the neighbor's kid across the street throwing rocks around. You did not say that you saw him actually throwing rocks and hit your truck.
The officer, when he come, he did not. I've had 2 incidents. When they come out, they don't even want to write a report.
No, but I'm telling you that that's what it said. And you said it happened just like it said in the police report. That's what it says in the police report, that you saw him throwing rocks around, which I believe.
Okay.
Which I believe, because I don't believe him that he never threw rocks around. Because there isn't a 9-year-old boy who hasn't thrown rocks around.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay?
Exactly.
So I don't believe him. But this is what the police memorialized.
Like I said, they didn't want to write the report, and they wasn't home today at the time he did it for them to talk to.
Now, Miss Clark, why would you think that Mr. Richmond would accuse your son, who we seem to like, as opposed to any of the other neighborhood children?
He complains about all the neighborhood children, not just my son.
I didn't say complained about. I said, why would he accuse your son as opposed to the other 11 children?
I believe it's retaliation because he asked me out on a few occasions and I told him no.
So that's what you say in your answer. When did he ask you out?
In November, because
Well, that's what I said, in November. He asked
But the
you
very first time I moved in with my mother,
Yes.
which was 4 years ago.
Yes. So 4 years ago he asked you out?
Yeah, 4 years ago, he asked me out for the first time. I turned him down.
Okay, so that's 4 years ago.
Then I come back in
November.
No, I'm always at my mom's.
You came back in November to live with her.
Exactly, but I wasn't living with her at the time. He asked me out again.
When was that?
July of '99.
So what you're telling me, Miss Clark, is that Mr. Richmond has had this unrequited love for you since 1999, and he manifests this unrequited love by 3 years later, in April, accusing your son of throwing rocks? Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I believe, yes.
Well, I would suggest that you take a good reality check. Take a reality check, believe me. I don't even have to ask him. He is not harboring an unrequited love for you for the last 3 years. Trust me, he's not. And that's not why he would accuse your son of throwing rocks at his truck. You want to get to your counterclaim and get there fast?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
He harasses, he goes around telling people in the trailer court my kid's a bad kid and that I'm never there. He's never in school because I don't get up to take him.
Is that true?
No.
I mean, I didn't ask you if he's never in school. Does he sometimes miss school when he's not under medical care?
No.
I mean, it's very easy. All I have to do is call the school. Does he?
I got his report card and the medical from his doctor.
I just want to see how many days he's out of school.
And there is only 2 days that are unaccounted for.
I didn't ask how many days are unaccounted for. How many days absent is he?
For the whole year, I believe 11. Austin has asthma.
Well, he's got a couple of unexcused absences, but I would be concerned about his behavior if I were you, Miss Clark.
Oh, yes, I am very.
Because under all the things that deal with Austin's behavior,
Needs improvement.
every one of them, he got the lowest. Listens, follows directions, expects the property rights of others, shows self-discipline, needs improvement. Shows respect for proper authority, is responsible and dependable, gets along with his peers. He's got problems. So if somebody came to me and said, I've seen him doing some things around town, I would listen to them and not make up in my head that the reason he's making these claims against you is because he asked you out 4 years ago.
I have a witness that heard him ask me out.
Who cares?
And different things that he's done. He sits in his truck and he just stares into my windows. I have to keep myself locked in my bedroom with my curtains closed because I'm feared that he's looking at me. He stares in my windows. I have witnesses that see him
Oh, really?
do
I
it.
would like to hear the witnesses who's going to tell me that he's... I mean, what you're saying is he's a peeping Tom.
Exactly.
I want to hear a witness. Who are you?
Jason McGriff.
Who are you?
Friend of the family.
You're a friend of whose family?
I'm boyfriend and friend of the family. I met...
Just listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Take your hands out of your pockets. Put your hands down at your sides. When I ask you who you are, you say, I'm her boyfriend. Is that who you are?
Yes, ma'am.
Then don't give me a whole lot of who shot John. Don't say I'm a friend of the family. You're her boyfriend, right?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Gary Richmond claims neighbor 9-year-old Austin Clark damaged his truck with rocks. Austin's mom, Monica Clark, claims Gary's upset that she won't date him.
Okay. So if you lie to me, or if you don't tell me the truth right from the get-go, I tend to hold everything else that you say suspect. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am, that is
What do
a
you
good
do
point.
for a living, sir?
I do lawn care.
And how long have you been involved with Miss Clark?
We've been going out for about 2 years.
Now, what do you want to tell me about Mr. Richmond and his looking through the window in her house?
I've seen him on several occasions sit in the driveway in his truck, staring at the house, drive around the park, following Austin, just being nosy, concerned about every little thing that Austin's doing. Told her stepdad that he would do anything to get her out of the trailer court, and I believe it's because she won't go out with him.
Thank you very much. Your intuition and your intuitive nature leads me to believe that you've made absolutely the wrong choice. Sit down. Now, I have heard nothing from your star witness that he is a peeping Tom. I've heard that he's a retired guy who may get in his truck and follow Austin around to make sure that he's not causing any damage. But that doesn't mean he's a peeping Tom. That's a nasty thing to say. Nasty. Your counterclaim's dismissed. I think it's nonsense. Damage is due to harassment and invasion of privacy. And I would pay more careful attention to your son's behavior, which seems to be going in all the wrong directions. If somebody's telling you, and somebody's telling you nicely that he's not doing the right thing, I would listen to it instead of getting my cackles up and saying he's making up stories about my son. In any event, I believe that your son threw rocks, and I believe that some of the rocks hit his truck, but I think you got an old truck, 1992 truck that probably had a couple of other spots on it. I don't see any photographs of the damage.
Miles on it.
I also don't see any photographs of it, sir, so I think that if you want to have those dings taken out of the truck, you can do it. You're not going to do it for $1,641. You're going to do it for $500. I'm entering a judgment for the plaintiff in that amount, and your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He's done 16 infractions around the park to other people, and 4 of those to me.
I know my son didn't do it.
A lot of the problem is the lack of supervision.
I know he didn't throw the rocks that day.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Wofford versus Pearson, step forward, please.
22-year-old homemaker Cameo Wofford is suing 27-year-old CNA Patricia Pearson for the cost of car insurance. Patricia claims Cameo is trying to run a scam.
Ms. Wofford, the defendant was a friend of yours, and according to your complaint, somehow she owes you $280-some-odd for automobile insurance.
Yes.
So in 3 minutes, I'd like you to tell me how it came about that she owes you for automobile insurance.
Well, on the 15th of May, she asked me to have her car insured because she needed transportation to get back and forth to Buffalo because her daughter was sick. Unfortunately, she sells her babies to a black market.
What does that mean?
That means she sells her babies to these families, and they give her money.
You mean she has children that she puts out for adoption?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And they would pay the car insurance every month, and it come to find out that she was never pregnant, so they cut her off.
So?
I had no money to pay it because that was
Ms.
her
Wofford,
responsibility to pay it.
According to what I tried to piece together from your complaint, she asked you to put her car on your insurance because she didn't have a driver's license.
Yes.
You said okay.
Yes.
So you were assisting someone in committing a fraud against the insurance company and breaking the law. Is that right?
Well, I didn't know it was against the law to put...
You know it's against the law to drive a car without a license, don't you?
Yes.
And when you told the insurance company that you wanted to add another car to your insurance policy, they asked you on the form to name the other drivers, right?
No, I just...
Of course they do. Of course they do. In any event, what happened was she didn't give you the money. You put her car on your insurance. They canceled both of your insurances, and now you want the money back for your insurance. I'm going to give you a very fast lesson in jurisprudence. You cannot come into court asking a court to help you if you have unclean hands. So if you do something wrong and somebody else does something more wrong, it's not the court's job to figure out who did something that's wrong and, for want of a better term, wronger. Do you understand me?
Yes.
Now, the fact that you knew that she, an unlicensed driver, you were assisting an unlicensed driver, puts you in a position of coming to court with unclean hands.
I wasn't looking at it that way.
Well, I want you to look at it that way. I've just given you your lesson in jurisprudence. You have to know that you always have to do the right thing. And if you're going to help somebody to do the wrong thing, you're not going to get help from the courts to fix it. Got it? Mm-hmm. Good. Goodbye.
Thank you.
20-year-old student Jamaica King is suing her ex-boyfriend, 17-year-old Canthony Brown, and his mother, cashier Tracy Parrish. Jamaica says Canthony stole her car and wrecked it.
Now, this is case number 155 on the calendar in the matter of King versus Parrish Brown. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
What's your first name?
Canthony.
This is your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you have a seat? I'll get to you in a minute. Miss King, this used to be your boyfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
You're suing his mother because he's underage.
Yes, ma'am.
You claim that he stole your car and had an accident with it.
Yes.
And you want his mother to pay the $3,000-some-odd that it's going to cost to fix your car.
Yes, ma'am.
He's just really here because he was the one who was driving the car, but he is not financially responsible or responsible at all because he's 17.
Yes.
Are you still 17, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you want to say something to me? Was that a question?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
I know you're going to get it right. How old are you, Miss King?
I am 20 years old.
Now, when did you start going out with Mr. Brown?
December 17th, 2002.
And you were 20 at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
And how old was he?
He was 17.
And you have a car?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the car in your name?
Yes.
Who bought it?
Me, myself.
Now, did you date Mr. Brown exclusively from December of 2002?
Yes, I did.
Until when?
February 24th, 2003.
So about 2 months.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And you knew, of course, that he didn't have a driver's license.
Well, the defendant told me that he had a permit.
You knew that he didn't have a driver's license?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you first let him drive your car?
It was maybe, actually, 2 months into the relationship.
Within 2 months, you were no longer seeing him?
Well, try a month and a half.
When did you first start using her car?
Maybe 2.5, 3 weeks before, into the relationship.
Tell me about the first time she let you drive her car.
I used to ask her to drive it, we'd drive to the park or something. We'd drive around, she'd let me drive, just for practice.
Okay, so she would sit next to you and you would drive?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did there ever come a time when she let you have the car by yourself?
Yes.
When for the first time did she let you have the car by yourself?
I can't remember the exact date.
Do you remember where you were going?
Yes, I was going to the store.
Well, where was she?
She was in the house.
And did she ask you to go to the store, or did you want to go to the store? Why did you go to the store?
I wanted to go to the store.
What store?
The store that was around the corner from her residence.
What did they sell at that store, Mr. Brown?
Regular stuff, chips, sodas.
A convenience store?
Yes.
I mean, there were furniture stores, there were pet stores, there were vacuum cleaner stores, there were clothing stores. Do you understand?
Yes.
And when was the next time that you used the car by yourself?
I would have to say when I went to my friend's house to get some clothes that I left over there.
In total, how many times did Miss King let you borrow the car?
I can't calculate the numbers, but I could say it was more than 3 times.
Okay. Now tell me about this accident.
My mom here, she asked me to go to McDonald's to get my sister something to eat.
Your mother did?
Yes.
What did she say to you?
She said, "Is Mika still here?" And I said, "Yes." She was like, y'all go to McDonald's to get us something to eat.
Who's Mika?
Her, Jamika.
Is Mika still here?
Yes.
Would you all go to McDonald's to get what?
2 Happy Meals.
For whom?
My 2 little sisters.
Where was your mother?
She was at home at the time.
And where were you?
I was at McDonald's.
No.
Oh,
she was asking you to go to McDonald's.
Where was I when she asked me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was in the same residence.
So you were together?
Yes.
Okay. So your mom asked you to go.
Yes.
And you had to take the car to do that.
Yes.
So tell me how you got the keys to the car.
Jamika, she was like halfway asleep or whatever, and I told her I'm about to go get something for my little sisters. She flagged me on like, all right.
Okay. Did your mom give you money to go?
Yes.
And you have to drive in order to get to McDonald's.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So your mother knew that you were going to drive the car.
Yes.
See why you're in trouble? Now you can stand up here. Your defense to this case was Miss King let him use the car all the time. It was her fault that he was driving the car. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read what you said here because this is your answer. The truth is that Jamika let Kenny drive her car all of the time. In fact, she is the one who taught him to drive. My boyfriend and I told her on numerous occasions not to let Kenny drive. Okay? Yet she let him drive the car so much it was as if they were married. If anything, she put my son's life in danger by letting him behind the wheel of her car. That's what you wrote. You asked him to go to McDonald's.
I did not ask him to take the car.
Yes, just a second.
My McDonald's is 3 blocks away from
Listen
our
to
house.
me.
It's walking distance.
Sit down.
Okay.
Your son doesn't lie. I know why he doesn't lie, because he'd probably get confused if he lied. Your son said, you said to him, is Jamika still here? Which means, is the car still here? Go and get your 2 little sisters something to eat. Don't say a word.
I wanted to tell the truth,
Really?
That's not the way it went, exactly.
Then you stand up here and you tell me the truth. You are the boyfriend.
Yes, and I was there at the time.
And your name is the what?
Elijah Holmes.
Okay, Mr. Holmes, you tell me.
So this is exactly how it happened. When she asked her to go, she was asking to say, saying, can you ask Mika to take you and her go to McDonald's, not knowing that Mika was asleep. When she asked him, she thinking Mika was woke, and Mika was gonna be the one that took him.
Thank you very much.
Took it into his own
I'm glad that you imparted to me that mental telepathy. Have a seat.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jessica King says ex-boyfriend 17-year-old Canthony Brown stole her car and wrecked it. Canthony says he drove it with her permission.
You are not totally without blame with regard to this, Miss King, because I believe that you let him drive the car all the time, both with you in the car and not in the car. Did you report that he had stolen the car from you?
Yes, because I was completely asleep.
Let me tell you something, but
Yes.
that was not the truth. He did not steal your car. He did not steal your car on this occasion. He did not steal your car on the other occasions when you let him drive himself without you being in the car. That had happened before. So what you did was, over the course of a period of time, let him think that he had your permission to drive the car. That doesn't excuse his mother. Because
May I say something?
now you can come up.
The McDonald's is 2.5 blocks from my home.
Just a second. You mean it got shorter from the time that you sat down there till you got up here? Just a second. It was 3 blocks 1 second ago.
It's approximately 3 blocks. It is walking distance. It's 2
So
lights.
why didn't you walk?
I asked my child to go. I said, Kenny, is Mika here? He said, yeah. I said, y'all go get the kids some McDonald's. Period with a dot. I didn't know he had took the car. I didn't know she didn't go with him. I just said, get them something to eat.
I think that you're both responsible. I think that she's half responsible, and I think that you're half responsible, because I don't believe you. I think that you would have been just as happy if your son took a quick ride over and got
I have
their
my
McDonald's.
own car.
Yeah, but you
Honor.
wouldn't let him drive yours.
I don't let him drive.
Right.
And I told her, don't let him drive.
If you wanted her to go over to get a McDonald's, why didn't you go over to her and ask her? She was at your house.
I communicated to
No,
my
why didn't you
son.
go over to her? She was the one with the car.
I communicated to my son.
He didn't have the car, according to you.
I communicated to him to go and ask her to go get them guys
Didn't
something
you
to
understand
eat.
my question, Miss Brown?
Why
I
didn't
said
I
to you,
go and ask her?
why didn't you ask her? She had the car.
Okay, well, I made a mistake.
Right.
without
That
asking
mistake's going to
her.
cost you half of what, put your hand down, half, only half of what it cost to have your car fixed. You're going to tell me how you had the accident? Kenny,
Yes.
how did you have the accident?
I pulled out of the driveway, out of the drive-through, and I guess the big rig, it was rushing because it seen me right there and I was about to turn, but it kept on going, like on the side of me, then it stopped, and then it turned my way, and then the side went into the side of the car.
Of a big rig?
Yes.
Can I see the damage to the car and the estimates, please? You're lucky you weren't hurt. A lot of damage. Are these 3 estimates?
Yes.
Well, you've got one for 4,000, got one for 2,200, and you got one for 2,500.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right? Have you had the car fixed yet?
No, ma'am.
$2,247.21. You're responsible for half. Very, very simple. You put him in a position where he believed that he had your permission to drive the car whenever he pleased. He drove with you and he drove without you previous to this date. His mother also knew that he was driving your car, and if his mother was as concerned as she says she was, she would not have communicated to him the chore. She would have asked you if you would do her a favor since you were at the house. Please, I'd like to get the kids something to eat. Would you and Kenny please go over and get them something to eat? Then she would have known that you were sleeping, if you were in fact sleeping, and she would have asked Kenny to walk over, which she did not. So that was her mistake. Her mistake is going to cost her half of what it costs to fix your car. So judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,123.50. Thank you. That's all.
All these are excused. They step out.
Well, I thought it was fair because it was half and half.
I'm very pleased with the judge's decision.
I felt as if he did take my keys.
I do feel like Kenny had some responsibility in it.
If you take someone's car, you crash it, and then pay the damage.
I asked her not to let my son drive on numerous occasions. She laughed about it then, and it is not funny now, and now she has to pay half the cost.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Surratt versus Neely. Step forward.
Store manager Tanya Surratt is suing truck driver Curtis Neely and his wife Frankie for the cost to fix her car after she ran into their cow. The Neelys are countersuing for the cost of the cow.
Mr. Surratt, it is your claim that the defendant's cow came in contact with your car.
Yes, Your Honor.
And as a result of that, your car was severely damaged.
Yes, ma'am.
The defendants have a counterclaim, and they say that you were probably speeding when your car hit their cow, which was killed, and that's their counterclaim. So I have to make a judgment as to who did what to whom. You have pictures of your car?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I'd like to see pictures of your car. That's going to help me a lot. When did this happen, Miss Surratt?
On July 27th, 2002, excuse me.
Where?
About a mile from my house, out in Effingham.
And where was the cow?
I was coming up the right side of the road, and they were on the left shoulder of the road.
Who's they?
Well, it was the mom and the calf.
So it was the calf that you hit?
Yes, ma'am, it was the calf that I hit. The calf darted out into the road while I was coming up, and in return, I hit it, killed it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
A cow just don't dart out in front of you.
She didn't hit this calf on purpose, just because it happened to be in the way. That would sound ridiculous. She doesn't look like a nut.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tanya Surratt says her car was damaged after she ran into a cow owned by Curtis and Frankie Neely. Curtis says Tanya was driving too fast.
Okay. What was the cow and the calf doing out of a fenced-in area?
They had got out. I had a new fence put up with electric wire, a new cow wire, and he had got out. But on the road that she was talking about, this is 1 mile of straight road with 15 foot on each side of the lanes. It's very clear. She had to be speeding in order to not see this cow and hit him, because it's very clear. Cow just don't dart out in front of you.
Listen, she didn't hit this calf on purpose, because that doesn't happen.
Now, she must be going pretty fast.
Don't know. I know that she looks like a reasonable person. Why would she put herself or her car in a position of being damaged by hitting your cow?
I don't feel like I'm in wrong with the cow, because I did everything I could, to keep him in. I put up a new fence and did everything I could, so I don't feel like I'm responsible in no way. And I'm out of the cow, too,
Is there a posted speed limit on that road?
Yes, ma'am, I believe the posted speed limit is 45.
Is that right?
It's 50.
I think it's 50.
50 or 45.
50 miles an hour?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that looks like this could have happened at 50 miles an hour. That's a pretty good clip. Well,
Your Honor, I have pictures of the old fence and the new fence that I've replaced
Can I see it, please?
before I put the fence up.
the big cow was okay, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Just the calf was killed?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't mean just. Strike that just. It was the calf that was killed.
Yes, ma'am.
What state do you live in?
South Carolina.
Any laws in your jurisdiction with regard to animals being out?
Ma'am, I was told if it wasn't my fault and there was no neglect, that I was not responsible.
Well, Mr. Neely, you see, the problem is somebody is always responsible, even if it's an accident, if it was not done on purpose. There's no question that on purpose you didn't let a cow and a calf outside of your property.
No, ma'am.
There's also no question that Miss Surratt would not intentionally hurt your animal, nor would she put herself in a position of being seriously injured by hitting it just because it happened to be in the way. That would sound ridiculous. She doesn't look like a nut. So somebody was at fault. Now, if the speed limit was 15 miles an hour on this country road, I would look at this car and I would make a judgment that you were going in excess of 15 miles an hour. But if the speed limit is 45 or 50, I could say that based upon that, this damage to your car would have resulted if you hit an object.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. To begin with, the cow had to have been in the center of the road for her to hit it on the driver's side of the car. The cow was knocked about 15 foot to the side of the road. So she really had to have been speeding at a higher rate of speed than 50 miles an hour.
That's not true, madam, at all. 50 miles an hour on a country road is very fast. You're not on a highway. On a highway is different. Yeah. But were you there?
I arrived on the scene.
He's my witness, ma'am.
Come on up, How did you arrive on the scene?
When she had the accident, she gave me a call and told me to come.
You are her husband?
I'm her husband.
Okay.
And when I arrived on the scene, Your Honor, it was still dark. It was 5:30 in the morning when this occurred. The calf that she hit was a black calf. There are no street lights in that area on the street where she hit the calf.
That makes perfect sense, Mr. Surratt. Cheapest estimate you have is $3,055. Is that right?
Your Honor, this car already had damage on it. The right side of this car is primed all up. They ain't brought the pictures of the right side.
The right side ain't got damaged by the cow, though.
I don't know how much damage this cow done.
Excuse me,
I don't know
Your
if all this damage is. I don't think this cow only weighed 200 pounds, done this much damage to this car.
I don't know if you know that much about cows or not, but a cow is a very slow-moving animal. They do not normally dart out in front of anything.
Even if it didn't dart out, let's say it didn't dart out. Let's say she's going the speed limit and your cow is in the middle of the road and it's 5:30 in the morning and she hits your cow that's in the middle of the road that did not dart out. You would still be responsible. She's not doing anything that's wrong by traveling down the road, going the speed limit.
She's supposed to be watching where she's going.
I'm supposed to be trying to go to work.
A cow doesn't belong in the middle of the road, sir. I am not going to attribute to her lunacy by hitting an object that could kill her, no less, we didn't even talking about her car. She would not do that. You have an obligation to keep your cows within a certain perimeter. Even if you try and don't succeed, that's an accident. That doesn't mean you did it on purpose. That doesn't mean you did it on purpose. That's why they don't call it on purpose insurance. They call it accident insurance. That means that two relatively innocent people get into an accident that no one intends. This was an accident that no one intends. But for the fact that your cow was out in the middle of the road, this accident wouldn't have happened. It's not but for the fact that she was speeding. There's no indication she was speeding. So she wasn't doing anything wrong. But for the fact that your cow was not where it was supposed to be, this accident wouldn't have happened. So you're responsible for the damage to her car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,055. Counterclaim is dismissed. Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused.
1-year-old homemaker Christina Peel is suing her baby's uncle, 20-year-old Kyle Jarvis, for smashing out her car window and filing false charges with CPS. Kyle says Christina is an irresponsible mother.
Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise.
It's okay. I just
Okay. Your Honor, this is case number 161 on the calendar in the matter of Peel versus Jarvis. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
Who is this?
This is my witness, Frederick Hollowell.
Sit down. Miss Peel, Mr. Jarvis is your baby's uncle. His brother, who is your baby's father, is incarcerated. Is that right?
Yes.
Your complaint alleges that Mr. Jarvis moved in with you after his brother went to jail. He was always a very good uncle. Mr. Jarvis says that your relationship with him became a more intimate one than just him being the uncle to your baby. You claim that he owes you for rent, that he got angry with you at some point and he smashed the windows out of your car, and that he filed false reports against you with Child Protective Services.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Jarvis says he doesn't owe you any rent because you never paid any rent, which is why you got evicted. He did, in fact, get angry at you once because you were out of the house or something. And he did smash the windows on a car, but it was his car. And finally, the charges that he filed against you with Child Protective Services, he says were true, and they were filed because he was attempting to protect his nephew. That's the case. So let's start with one thing at a time. He moved in with you when?
Sometime in January, we got a place.
Of what year?
2003.
When did his brother go to jail?
I'm not sure of the date.
When did your brother go to jail, sir? I see you're a real close family. What?
2000, Your Honor.
Is he still incarcerated?
Yes, he is.
You moved in January of 2003?
Yes, Your Honor.
Why?
She was asking me to move in with her so I could be closer to Jeffrey and stuff. And she wanted to move out of her mom's house.
So you moved into an apartment together?
Actually, it was a trailer.
What was your arrangement as far as paying rent?
We'd go halves on it.
Did you pay your half?
Yes.
For how long?
For pretty much as long as I was staying there.
And you say he didn't pay rent?
He wasn't even working. He had no income. There was no way he could have made the rent. And I did not want to leave my mom's house. He told me his parents were abusing him.
Did you pay the rent?
Yes, I did.
Show me.
I don't have the statements with me because he took them when he left my house.
What statements?
The receipts.
Well, you needed something from the landlord. So you don't have proof that you paid the rent either?
No.
He says you didn't pay rent, and that's why you got evicted. Were you evicted from the trailer?
Yes, because the landlady said the police were there too much because Kyle kept bringing them over.
If you come to court seeking half rent, you have to establish that you, in fact, paid the rent. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Right, so now we're going to forget about rent. Now, let's hear about the car window. Did you smash out the car window?
Yes, Your Honor, I did.
Why did you do that?
Because I got mad because she was out late, and when she came back with Fred, she...
That's Fred?
Yeah, I think that's Fred, yeah.
Shh. Go ahead.
So when she came back with Fred, I asked her where was she going because it was like 10 o'clock at night. She didn't answer me. She just ran and jumped into his car, and she took off, and I got mad because she left a 2-year-old with a 15-year-old that was having sex with their boyfriend, and I punched out the back window of the car.
Now, you said the car. What car was this?
I think it was a 83 Oldsmobile.
It's an 88 Oldsmobile.
Why did you think that you were entitled to do that?
Well, because I had the money to pay the first payment on the car, and my name was first on it, so I punched out the window.
Who purchased the car?
Me and Tina.
The two of you?
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's correct.
So it was in both of your names?
Yes, I got the papers right here.
Okay, can I see that, please? Okay. The car was purchased in March of 2003. On what date did you knock the window out on the car, sir?
I'm not sure.
What day, Miss Pio?
It was the 19th, 03/1903.
Can I see the report, please? March 19th. Just got in the car.
Yes.
Where is the car now?
It got repoed because Kyle went down after he left and told the guy that I wasn't going to make the payment.
So what are you suing for?
For the loss of my car, for the damages.
But you didn't have the car. Nobody paid for the car.
I have to pay for the window, though.
No, you both have to pay for the window, and he broke the window.
Well, he told the police he would pay for the window, and he was supposed to. He promised he would, and he didn't.
Okay, they'll get him. And the car was repossessed, is that right?
Yes.
Perfect. So then we just took care of the car. Now let's talk about the CPS reports. Why did you file reports to Child Protective Services?
Because I was concerned about my nephew's well.
Tell me what kind of reports you filed, sir.
This is hearsay, so I don't know if it counts.
What?
But I was hearing that Fred was doing drugs, and my nephew was staying with Tina, and she was staying with Fred, and I didn't want him to be around drugs.
So somebody told you that Fred was doing something that was bad.
Yeah.
How many times did you call?
I think I called about 5, 6 times.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You probably made some errors in judgment with a lot of the men that you lived with, including his son.
I've never lived with his son.
Then you made a bigger error in judgment in having a baby with his son.
Yes.
And later today,
she had attempted to poison her mother.
Well, let me ask you this question. When did you know about that?
About a year before that actually happened.
Then how could you let your 19-year-old daughter sign a lease with her?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christina Peel says her baby's uncle, Kyle Jarvis, smashed out her car window and filed false charges with CPS. Kyle says he found out Christina was doing drugs.
Did Fred move in when you moved out?
Yeah.
Is that right, Fred?
That's not correct, Your Honor.
Step up, Fred. Fred, what's your last name?
Fred Hollowell.
How old are you?
24, Your Honor.
Ever been arrested?
Yes, I have.
When was the last time you were arrested, Fred?
About 6 months ago.
For what?
Probation violation.
What was the nature of your probation?
Burglary.
What was the nature of the violation?
Movie.
You were arrested because you moved?
Yes, the probation department that I'm with, we have to contact and let our probation officer where we're at all times.
When was the burglary, Fred?
October 2002.
Prior to the arrest, had you been arrested?
I've been arrested once before, having a disordered conduct with my ex-fiancée.
And that's it?
That's it.
Never anything involving drugs?
No.
Who do you work for now?
I was working for a restaurant.
Does that mean that you're not working now?
No, I'm not working.
Can I see the reports, please, that you have? CPS.
Here's the one for child abuse. That's pretty much the only one we got for right now.
Okay. Well, at least on one occasion when they went out, they found that everything was in perfect order. Sir.
Yes.
You also reported that they weren't feeding your nephew?
I do believe that's the one my mom called in on.
No, you're the reporting party.
Oh, okay. Then yeah.
That they weren't feeding him, that he was dirty?
Yeah.
That you thought he was abusing him?
Yes.
Were you angry that she had a new boyfriend?
No.
No? You sure about that?
Yes.
Yeah, he was, because he tracked me down to his house and showed up with the crowbar at the door saying that I needed to be home right away. And he
Well, that was when he said that he found your babysitters having sex in front of your child.
That's not true.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's what you say that you saw that got you furious and you broke out the window.
Yes.
I assume that this is your son?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Step up. Your other son is incarcerated. How many children do you have?
I have 2 children.
Do you ever see this grandchild?
She refuses to let myself and my wife see him.
Any particular reason?
These people have harassed me, calling the cops on me, CPS, saying I'm abusing my child. This man right here has tried to kill me. Once I told him I was calling the cops because I had a restraining order and did not want him there. He punched me in the chest, knowing I have lung problems, breathing problems, and heart problems. And I just want to be left alone. I'm tired of seeing the cops at my house 2-3 times a week. And I've gone through years of restraining orders. It doesn't work.
When was the last time you called Child Protective Services and/or the police on Miss Peel?
I can't remember.
Give me a year.
2003.
Give me a month.
Guess in
Your
March.
Honor, they have called them.
Just a second. I asked for the last date. Do you have the last date?
Yes, it was during March of 2003. They showed up at my residence.
Who do you live with?
I live with my mother.
You don't live with her?
She lives with me.
She lives with you at your mother's house?
Yes.
And the baby?
Yes.
What does your mother do for a living?
She works at a hospital. She's a laundry worker.
Are you working?
Not right now.
And you're not working?
No.
So who's supporting all of you?
Pretty much my mom right now.
Why did you call Child Protective Services and/or the police in March of this year?
Wanted to make sure my nephew was okay.
That's not a reason to call the police or Child Protective Services, sir. That's an abuse of the system.
Well, when you hear things from your friends around town that somebody's doing drugs around your 2-year-old nephew, you just call them.
No, not time after time after time, sir. After a period of time, it becomes harassment. You understand that?
Mm-hmm.
What your friends are saying may or may not be true. The way to discover that is to engage her in having a reasonable relationship. Instead, you acted in a volatile fashion. You understand what I'm talking about? Knocking out car windows, coming to her house where she was with a crowbar, whatever it was. It was inappropriate. Now, you also made some errors in judgment. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. You probably made some errors in judgment with a lot of the men that you lived with, including his son.
I've never lived with his son.
Well, then you made a bigger error in judgment in having a baby with his son.
Yes.
And then you lived with somebody else before you lived with him. Is that right?
I didn't live with him. We got the place together, yes.
Lived with him! It's a trailer. We're not talking about living in Helmsley Palace. We're talking about living in the small confines of a trailer. So you lived with somebody else before you lived with him?
Yes.
And that was an abusive relationship towards the end?
Yes.
Then you lived with him, and it's an abusive relationship with him?
Yes.
And with him? Now you're living with him? Yes. I don't know how many there were in between. You've made a lot of errors in judgment. You got it? You have to stop harassing her.
Yes,
you
Your Honor.
Understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you're concerned about your grandson and want to see your grandson, sue for visitation. But that's much more difficult than just picking up the phone and making a police report. You're not entitled to a financial award, Miss Peel, against these people. If they don't stop doing it, I suggest that you file a lawsuit for abusive process.
So he doesn't have to replace the window or anything?
Actually, I told the car salesman that I'd take care of it with him personally.
So you're going to take care of the window?
Yeah, I told him personally that I would. It'll take me some time.
Good. So then you take care of the window.
Yeah.
And the cost that I had to pay of getting the locks changed because he took off with the keys.
Show me that you paid for it.
I paid $400 deposit and it was taken out of that.
All I asked for was proof. You don't have the proof. The car was repossessed. I've already given them the drill with regard to filing reports that ultimately rise to the level of harassment. But I'm telling you, Miss Peel, somebody who has had a baby with somebody who is incarcerated, lived with at least 3 people in a relatively short period of time. 2 of those relationships were abusive. demonstrates to me that you are not exercising good judgment as a parent. Do you understand what I said to you?
Yeah, but I didn't.
Good.
He's only
Goodbye.
What is unexcused? You may step out.
I don't think it was right. I think I should have got the money.
And that's just all about the Benjamins.
These people have harassed me all my life. Well, for the last few years.
All I'd like to see is my nephew in good health, you know.
I moved all the way to Vegas to get away from these people, and it still went on.
My brother said he's going to sign over parental rights to me.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McCoy versus Muhammad. Step forward.
19-year-old home health care provider Mushana McCoy is suing her former roommate, 19-year-old home health care provider Aisha Muhammad, for breaking their lease. Aisha says Mushana sabotaged her relationship.
Ms. McCoy, you and the defendant have been good friends. You both wanted to try living together. You signed a 6-month lease on an apartment, and Ms. Mohammed moved out after 2 months. You want her to pay her share of the remainder of the lease. Ms. Mohammed says that you made life unbearable. She moved out because she was afraid for her safety. You moved in on what date?
April 10th, 2003.
And it was a 6-month lease on how many bedrooms in the
2 bedroom, 1 bath.
And you both signed the lease?
Yes.
And you moved out when?
I moved out May 20th.
So you were there not even 2 months, but
Yeah.
you probably paid for April and May.
Yeah.
And what was the rent?
$625.
And were you splitting that in half?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed, you're going to have to convince me, madam, that you had a valid reason for breaching your lease, forcing her to assume your responsibility for the remainder of the lease. I'm ready.
Oh, well, the first instance, she wanted me to go to her grandmother's, and I didn't go, so she was upset about that. And then she started making little comments like, because I would stay at my boyfriend's throughout the week. She would say, if you don't spend more time here, I'm going to change the locks, and that if I pay rent here, I need to stay here. And then also I found a cable bill for over $200 of lesbian pornography, and I felt very uncomfortable with that fact. And my boyfriend had called one day for me. I was at work, and she told him that I was cheating on him, I was sleeping around, just like things to break us up, basically. I found out that she did it, and I decided that I couldn't live with the enemy. I had to move out.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mushana McCoy says ex-roommate Aisha Muhammad owes for breaking a lease. Aisha says she moved out because Mushana had ulterior motives.
You have anything you want to tell me?
Yes, ma'am. May 17, 2003, I was at work. Her boyfriend called me at work. He actually wanted to see if Aisha was there, but she wasn't there. And he said, well, I'm going to break up with Aisha. And I said, why? And he said, because I think she's cheating on me, she's nasty, and a whole lot of horrible things he said about her. And so he asked me, was another guy over there visiting our apartment? And I said, well, her ex-boyfriend was there, but they're just friends. And he was like, well, I kind of figured who it was already. And that's all I said to him. So after that, he called again.
Ms. McCoy.
Yes, ma'am.
You were being a troublemaker. That doesn't give her the right to break her lease. But just so that you understand, I believe, and Officer Petrie Hawkins-Byrd believes, that you were being a troublemaker. A good friend says, listen, I don't want to hear your nasty talk about my friend. And don't ask me about who's over here visiting. That's none of your business, or at least you're not going to get that information from me. Instead, you tell him that an old boyfriend was over visiting. That's being a troublemaker, Miss McCoy. Who is this?
This is my mother. She bear witness to the things she did.
Just a second.
May I add something?
Of course.
I moved the girls in myself. Mushana had little or no support from her family. And the reason why she didn't have any support, there was conflict within her family. She had attempted to poison her mother. And so her and her mother had
Well,
lost
let me ask you this question. When did you know about that?
Probably about a year before that actually happened.
Then how could you let your 19-year-old daughter sign a lease with her? If what you're telling me now you think is important to this case, what kind of a mother are you?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She's a very responsible young lady.
She wasn't responsible when she moved out of the apartment. She left the plaintiff stuck with a lease that she can't afford to take care of herself, so she was not responsible.
All the deposits that was put on the apartment was left in Mushana's. Food was bought a day before the move. We left that for Mushana. We tried to be very responsible because
you
Mushana
were irresponsible. Stocking the refrigerator does not take care of $1,242. That's her share of rent over 4 months.
I'm saying it was unfortunate for both of the girls, but we didn't try to, like...
You didn't give her a choice. Your daughter just...
Brooke Beeson claims former roommate Kimberly May broke their lease when she moved out of their apartment.
How old are you?
21.
Who is this?
My mother.
Thank you. Miss Beeson, you and the defendant leased an apartment together. Were you both in college at the time?
She dropped out of college. I was still attending, yes.
And according to your complaint, she moved out.
Yes.
On the lease. She moved out on the lease, and in addition to moving out on the lease, she, according to you, defamed you by telling certain things to your landlord about what was going on in the apartment. You want to be compensated for both.
Absolutely.
Half of the rent and the defamatory remarks that she allegedly made to the landlord.
Yes.
When did you sign the lease?
May 2006.
And you had known each other for a long time, according to what I read in the complaint. So this wasn't new. And it was just the two of you in the apartment?
Yes.
When did you move out?
June 29th, 2006.
Okay. Now you're going to tell me why you moved out.
Due to bad circumstances.
No, well, that's...
Drug use, and she clearly disrespected me after asking her plenty of times, her friends in and out of my stuff, my bathroom. I had to put a lock on my door because I didn't feel comfortable leaving my own house, and that's why I left.
Let me try to sort it out a little bit. You felt uncomfortable because her friends were coming to the house, and you felt uncomfortable with them.
Yes.
Why?
Because they were up all hours of the night using drugs.
Did you ever see anybody using drugs?
Yes.
Who?
Brooke and her friends.
What kind of drugs?
Marijuana, and that's all I saw.
Did you ever smoke marijuana?
Yes.
So they were up, they were partying, they were smoking marijuana.
That I know of.
That you know of. A substance that you also indulged in.
Not at the apartment.
Wherever. It's somebody's apartment. You didn't do it in the street, right?
Right.
Well, you didn't do it at school, right?
Right.
So you had to do it in somebody's apartment, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you had to put a lock on the door.
Yes.
Your bedroom door. Mm-hmm. Tell me when you put a lock on the bedroom door.
In May.
Tell me why.
Because I didn't feel my belongings were safe. She had people in and out of our apartment.
Miss May, did you have any rules that you set up to this apartment with Miss Beeson?
No.
Well, then you have a problem, madam. Your problem is you have to be a big girl.
I know that now.
And if you sign a lease on an apartment, you can't just pick up your marbles and go home. So far, you haven't given me one valid reason why you would be entitled to break a lease. You're alleging that you saw her and her friends smoking marijuana. Whether you did in the apartment or not, I don't know, but you certainly did it in somebody else's apartment, so you weren't frightened of drug use because you did it yourself.
Not at the time. Before I have.
Whatever. I didn't say at the time, before or after. So you weren't certainly frightened of what you saw there because it was something you had indulged in yourself. I mean, I can understand you not being happy if there's lots of partying going on. Did she complain to you about that? It's not an answer. Did she complain to you about people being in the apartment? Or...
Yes.
So what did you say to her?
They're mutual friends of ours, so at certain times, the same friends that would be there with me would be there when I would come home. Late at night, they would be over with her.
Well, why didn't you try to work it out? Sit down and work out a scenario where at 1 o'clock in the morning everybody goes home, whether it's your friends or her friends. Why didn't you try to work it out?
Because it wasn't an ongoing thing. It wasn't day to day. It wasn't day in, day out. So it was never a continual issue.
Well, but she made it an issue. When did she tell you she was moving out?
Never told me. Moved
That's a
out.
lie.
Vacated the premises without any warning. Said she needed to talk to me the morning before. I came home from work. I said, you know what, I have school all day. I'll be home at 2 o'clock. I have to be at work at 5. If you want to talk when I get home from school, that's totally fine. If you want to meet me, I'll be here from 2 to 5 before I go to work. Came home, didn't say a word to me. I went to work, came home, and all of her things were gone.
What efforts did you make to find another roommate to take over your lease?
I told her 3 weeks prior to my moving out.
What efforts
I
did
didn't
you...
make any.
Well, you have to. You can't just walk out on a lease. Now, what proof do you have that she made statements to the landlord about you?
I have a document that she had given to the apartment complex, if you want to look at this.
That she signed?
That she has signed, yes, absolutely.
I'd like to see it. Who prepared this letter for you?
Me and my mom read it.
Well, you can't just say, I accept no responsibility for rent or expenses relating to the apartment after June 29th, 2006. You have a contract with them, and you have a contract with her. And you made absolutely no effort to find another roommate. You have to be a big girl. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Well, why did you help her write this letter? Stand up when you talk.
Because she needed to write it at the time.
What do you mean she needed to write it at the time? I don't understand you. Did you know your daughter smoked marijuana?
She had before.
She had before?
Yes,
She
I did
probably had
know.
during, and I guarantee you she does afterwards, maybe not in the apartment, but it's not something that frightens her because she does it herself. And that's the only drug use that she ever says she saw in the apartment. So why would she sort of ascribe any untoward behavior to the plaintiff? It's outrageous. She's a baby, and she shouldn't be coddled by you. Should have told her not to rent the apartment in the first place. You have a roommate now?
No, I do not.
Did you have a roommate?
Yes, I did for 1 month.
So you did have a roommate?
Yes.
When did the roommate move in?
In October. It was a temporary thing. He was moving in and moving out, and I needed the rent, so I told him he could move in for the 1 month that he was transferring places from where he was at to going back to his parents' house. It was an agreement we had from the start. He was the only person I could find, and I needed the money at the time, so any money's better than no money at this point.
Did you put any ads in the paper?
I have not, but I had a roommate lined up that bailed on me last minute, so it's just a bunch of...
Who's paying?
Mother does. I'm a full-time student.
When is the lease up?
May of 2007.
Well, you better see if you can find another roommate.
Absolutely, I'm in
What's
the
the
process.
rent?
$1,400. It's actually $1,391.
Okay, so it's $700 each. Is
Yes.
that right?
Not including utilities.
She moved out in May. Did you pay May's rent?
Yes.
Did you pay June's rent?
Yes.
You didn't pay July?
No.
Didn't pay August?
No.
Didn't pay September?
No, but she wrote me a letter saying that she was having a roommate move in September 1st, 2006, and I responded to her
Let me see.
letter.
Give her both of them.
Okay. Well, you wrote this letter to her, telling her exactly what she owed and that your daughter, fortunately, had found a roommate that will be moving in September 1st. You wrote the letter.
However, can I?
Yes.
Okay. Brooke had a girl from work lined up that had given us a $200 deposit, which we, on the itemization, showed that she had given us. The girl ended up not moving in. So we deducted $200, the deposit she had given, and we did get a deposit from her to secure us, but it didn't remove Kim from the lease. Anyways, she did not get another roommate until Chad moved in for 1 month. She has contacted everybody. She let the apartment know that she would move out if they could find somebody. A tenant had come to me regarding something, and I had tried to work something out where she could even take over the apartment so Brooke could move back home.
I got you. You have 3 months' rent so far. We have October that this fellow moved in, and you have November and December. That's 5 months' rent. It's $3,500. So far, that's what you owe her. And although I'm not happy with the letter that you sent, the letter does not indicate that the plaintiff is the one that was using drugs in the apartment. It says that there was drug use in the apartment. It doesn't describe that conduct particularly to her. Could have been other people, it could have been guests, etc. So I'm not awarding you any money for defamation. Right now, the entire lawsuit has not come to fruition yet. It's not become fixed yet because I am hoping that she will find a roommate.
So am I. I'm paying the rent.
Right, I got it. You can't do that. And your daughter can't do that. She's got a responsibility. Why should this mother be responsible for the rent? Let your daughter move in, she'll move out. You want to do that? Stand up. Move over. The apartment's lease goes until next May. Right now, Miss Beeson's mother has been footing the bills for your daughter's share of the rent. She's perfectly prepared for her daughter to come home and live at home. You want to assume the responsibility from January until May for your daughter? She'll move out and your daughter can move in. That way she can be safe. She can have only her own friends. How about it?
No, I would not.
Why?
Why?
Why is my question. Why is it okay for this lady to pay all the rent when your daughter defaulted and not for you to pay all the rent when your daughter defaulted?
Well, first of all, that lady doesn't have to pay anything. I don't have to pay anything.
Sure
We're
you
two
do.
adults.
No, just a second. You made an excuse for your daughter and you helped her craft a letter to get out of a lease. Your daughter had no right to move out.
May I say something? What if I find her a roommate?
No question. That's not my question. My question is, you can't stick her with the rent. What, instead of her having to pay you any money since she's already out that money, you move in. You find a roommate. You don't have to find her a roommate. Find yourself a roommate that you're happy with. How about it?
No.
Yeah,
May I say something?
Right. She's a big baby, and don't encourage her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,500. That's all.
James Elmore says his sister, Shauna Padilla, owes for loans to make her mortgage payments. Shauna is countersuing for damages to her property.
Mr. Elmore, the defendant is your sister.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to your complaint, you loaned her the money to make her mortgage payment for about a year.
Yes, ma'am. It was about 10 months, probably. Yes, ma'am.
And you loaned her that money with the understanding that if she did not pay you back, the title to the mobile home would be put in your name.
Yes, ma'am. Either or, some kind of assurance that I'd get something out of it.
And Ms. Padilla says that there was never an agreement that you paid her mortgage, but that was like rent because you were, in fact, living there. Now, explain to me how it came about that your sister and your mother were together in this mobile home.
Well, I moved to Mexico, and after I moved there, my sister had my mother move in with her. I was down there about 5.5 to 6 months. I came back in, like, July.
Where did you stay when you came back to work in July of 2004?
For the first, probably month and a half, I stayed at her trailer.
So from, let's say, July and August.
In August, I was in California, in San Francisco.
When in August?
The 1st of August, I got a job traveling, working in refineries.
So you spent 1 month with your sister and your mother?
Probably about that.
Is that about right?
I wasn't there during that timeout.
Who was there?
She was there, man.
All right, so you say she was there. So you lived there for a month in July. When did you have this conversation with her about the mortgage?
I'd say it was in June. The end of June.
So before you moved in?
Yeah, I was still in Mexico before we had this conversation.
So in Mexico, she called you and said what?
That she's a couple of months behind on her payment. They're about to repossess it, and she moved my mom in with her, and I didn't want my mom to be, stuck out because she didn't pay her bills.
So?
So I came back, and I got a job building swimming pools and started paying, And she said that she wasn't working because she was waiting on a workman's comp thing to come through, which after a while,
don't speak to him. At my stage in life, I can only hear one person talk at a time.
Yes,
otherwise, I get confused.
But after a while, waiting on her workman's comp or whatever to start up so she could pay her own bills, it got kind of old. And she was quite a bit behind, about $1,100, I believe.
You were living in the trailer for the month of July.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would assume, at least for the month of July, you were going to pay some rent.
Yes, ma'am, but this month of July, I was paying the month of May's rent. I was paying her back payment.
If you paid her the back payment for the month of May, how much did you pay for rent in July when you were living there?
Well, I never had a set payment, I guess I would owe for that month of rent, but...
I guess you might.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you were working, right?
But see, none of that... Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
You don't think that she should pay for a time when you were living there and not paying rent?
Yes, ma'am, but I was paying her bills too, evidently, because she was not working. She had no income coming in whatsoever.
How much in total did you pay towards this trailer?
Trailer and utilities.
Trailer.
Trailer, I don't really have an exact on just a trailer, but I would just send money orders, and whatever they put it on, that was that.
That was nice of you. I don't hear anything about a loan.
Yes, ma'am. That's what all this was a loan.
Well, that's what you're telling me, sir. That's not what they tell me.
Yes, ma'am. But I would not have come back, to pay all her bills. I was living in motels this entire time.
Not in July.
No, I got that job in August.
Not in July.
Or the past 5 months.
Listen to me. Shh. Where have you been living the last 5 months?
A couple of months I was there. But then she got mad because of cell phone, so she told me to get out of her house. She ended up calling the police to have me removed.
Miss Petit?
Yes, ma'am.
But anyway, my roommate here, he was having to loan me money because I was sending all my checks
I'm talking about the last 5 months, Mr. Elmore. Where were you living?
I've been living with him for the last month and a half. And a little while I had to live in a shed next door to the house, believe it or not. The night after she called the police, they made me leave and told me I couldn't come back. I stayed in the shed for about 3 weeks.
Mr. Elmore, you and I are not coming together on the same wavelength.
Yes, ma'am.
It's explained to me why you have a case of a loan.
Well, because,
all of those things.
I paid off her trailer payment, Her trailer got paid for. And it all came from me, ma'am. Over $4,000 worth, and I was not living there.
Oh, Mr. Elmore.
I didn't have it separated.
Mr. Elmore.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have an argument with your sister?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
What was the argument about, Mr. Elmore?
It started over the cell phone. She asked to borrow my cell phone, I wouldn't let her.
Why?
That just I don't know.
You didn't feel like letting
her? Yes, ma'am.
So
no, I had no reason, but I just told her no. So
fine.
She told me to get out of her house, and I told her no. You know, I said, I paid all this. So she said it's in her name, and...
So she said it's in her name, get out of my house.
Yeah, exactly. I refused to leave. Well, she called the police.
And what happened when the police got there?
They made me leave. I left.
Is that when you filed this lawsuit?
It was a few days after that, when I was living in that shed. You know, I was watching the TV, and I just happened to see your show, and afterwards I called, you know.
What is your last name?
Elmore.
Miss Elmore, who do you live with now?
I live in the trailer with my daughter.
What about her?
She has moved into the trailer with me and my daughter. She lived there.
So that when I ask you a question, I expect you to give me a full answer. You live in the trailer with your daughter and this lady?
Yes.
Who
yes,
else lives there?
Just the three of us now.
Who pays the bills?
All three of us. Yes, ma'am.
Now, who was paying the bills, say, last July, August, September, October, November? Was your son paying the bills?
My son paid a lot. He did. I have never denied that, but I was paying too. It wasn't just Mike paying.
And your son contributed, according to him, some $4,000 over a 13-month period. Is that right?
Actually, it was more than that, but I've lost several receipts.
Now, Mr. Elmore, would you be here today if it wasn't for this cell phone incident, sir?
Yes, ma'am. It had been going through my mind for a long time, you know, because I wanted my money back.
Well, you're not going to get all your money back, sir. You lived there for
I'm aware of that.
You lived there for 4 months.
Yes, ma'am. I'm aware of that.
Ma'am, he came back in March, and he did not leave again until the end of August, the last week of August.
March, April, May, June, July. So it's 6 months.
Not the last week of August. It was about the middle of August.
So the date on the last receipt I had was 5/5 of 05.
Just a second.
So that's May. That's not March, ma'am.
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you saying your mother is a liar? She says you were there March, April, May, June, July, and part of August. So is what you're telling me that your mother is lying to me?
Yes, ma'am. I'm saying I was not there then.
Now, tell me, in March, he came back for how long?
It was about 2 weeks, I believe. And then he left out for the job. He never actually got to work on that job. He got sent back right after that.
And when did he come back?
Probably at the end of March.
So was he living in the trailer in April?
Yes, ma'am.
May?
Yes, ma'am.
June?
Yes, ma'am.
July?
Yes, ma'am.
And part of August?
No, ma'am,
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
not.
And part of August?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the previous July, he was there when he came back from Mexico?
Yes, ma'am.
For 1 month?
Yes.
Miss Judy, she says that I was there before then. When like I said, I got the date on the first receipt that I paid is 7/14 of 04. I was paying a May 15th bill because when she called me, she was 3 months back.
Listen to me, Mr. Elmore.
She got her dates confused, ma'am.
No, Mr. Elmore, listen to me carefully, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Your sister does not deny, nor will she deny to me today, that she called you and said, I've gotten behind in my bills.
I didn't call him, ma'am.
Or contacted him, or whatever, and said, I need some help. She's not denying that you gave her some help because the mortgage was behind. What your family is saying to you is you lived there for a longer period than you've indicated to me today, not just a couple of days, which you say in your complaint, you know, that your employer pays for your motel and that's where you were living, that you were living there for a period of at least, according to both your mother, who I believe, and your sister, July, part of March, April, May, June, July, and part of August. So at least 6.5 months. And for that, living there for all of that time, you contributed $4,200. That's pretty reasonable. You have a roof over your head, you have gas, you have electric, you have food, you have whatever else it takes. And if you helped your family out for another 3.5 months, you don't come in here and bother me about that. What you're annoyed about is that your sister, for whatever reason, after you said she couldn't use your cell phone, told you to leave. So you got annoyed, and then you had nothing to do, so you went and watched me on television and said, aha! I'm going to go and file a small claims court case. Mr. Elmore,
well,
Mr. Elmore, get a life. Case is dismissed.
I need your excuse. You may step out.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
I have a counterclaim.
It's dismissed.
Okay.
If he bothered you, annoyed you for a year, and you let him bother you and annoy you for the year, that makes you not too smart.
I moved out of the state to get away
Very
from him.
good. That's exactly what you should do.
Marianne Miller says ex-daughter-in-law Kelly Hood owes for the cost to support her son. Marianne claims Kelly is a deadbeat mom.
Miss Miller, this is your former daughter-in-law who is
Yes.
married to your son. They have 3 children together.
Yes.
How long have you been divorced?
Since 1992.
And you are remarried?
Yes.
There came a time when your former daughter-in-law and her husband were having some difficulty, and the 3 children came to live with you. One of the children remained with you. Is this the young man?
Jeremy, my grandson.
He's now 18?
Correct.
But he's been with you since he's 16. And it is your complaint that during that time, Miss Hood was receiving support from your son for his son.
Yes.
And was not sending that support to you.
Correct.
So you're suing for that support, and also what you believe is her obligation to send some support herself for
Yes.
her child. Ms. Hood says that the meager amount of money that your son was sending to support his 3 children hardly supported one child, and that there was never an agreement with you that she would send support. She quite frankly thinks that it's absurd that you should come to court now and ask for what is $18 a week that your son was sending for his son's support.
Right.
Where is your son?
My son is there, Trevor.
That would be you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, stand up next to your mother, please. Your last name is?
Warman.
How many children do you have, sir?
3 by my ex-wife.
No, all together.
4.
What kind of work do you do, sir?
I'm a security guard.
How old are your children?
18, 17, 16, and 8.
Are you remarried?
No, ma'am.
Does the 8-year-old child live with you?
No.
Do you support the 8-year-old child?
Yes.
How much?
Right now we're going to court, and I'm in the process of getting medical insurance for her
So the answer would be nothing.
right now.
And how much do you send for your 16-year-old?
$69 per month.
Or $16 per week? That's what it comes down to. Or slightly more than $2 a day for your 16-year-old, right?
Okay.
Mr. Warman, I've just done the math on my trusty calculator because I'm not much of a mathematician.
He not only gives him money, but he also helps him. He buys them things. I mean, that's just not cut and dry. He bought sheets for their beds, but she didn't supply for their children's bed. He bought sheets for the beds because they didn't have any.
Oh, we're going to make him Father of the Year.
No, but I'm saying he does do other things. He doesn't just give the support. He does other things. He sees his children.
Miss Miller.
I disagree.
How many children did you raise?
4.
And who supported your children when they were growing up?
My husband's and
what
myself.
kind of work did he do?
Okay, I had 2 husbands. Okay, the first one worked at the post office, and my current husband works at a warehouse.
Is your former husband the father of the children?
The former husband, yes.
The former husband, the one who was a postal worker?
Yes. And then I had another husband in between, and that was the other 2 kids. 2 children, 2 children. Well, it's like her. She.
No, don't point to her.
Okay, she's been married 3 times
don't
too.
Point to her. I'm not interested in her. I'm on your team now.
Okay.
And let's talk about how many people live in your house?
4.
Who are they?
My oldest son and Jeremy, and my husband and myself.
You have your own home?
Yes.
You have a mortgage?
Yes.
What are the mortgage payments?
$1,100.
So you would say $1,100 a month. Okay, so that would be approximately for the 4 people, $275 a month towards the mortgage, right?
Yes.
How much would you say you spend for food for the month?
I spend a good $600 to $800 a month.
So another $200 a month for each of the adults?
Yes.
So now we're up to $475, just for food and the roof?
Right.
We're not talking about clothes or anything else. How can you justify, madam, $18 a week that your son is sending support for his children as coming anywhere near the kind of support that I'm speaking that a child needs, and I'm not talking about buying pillowcases.
Right.
We're talking about support, real support. Now, if your son has a marginal job and can't afford anymore, fine. That's all he can afford. He wasn't too swift after not being able to support these 3 children. He went out and made another one, right?
Right.
You would say that that's true.
Yes.
How many children do you have?
I have 3 grown children.
No more?
No more.
At least she knew when she had enough. Do you understand, Miss Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Now, here we have $475 to just put a roof over their heads and to feed them.
I don't make that money. My husband makes money, and he's not his blood grandfather.
I understand that. I'm talking about your son.
Right, and that's what the court ordered him to pay, was the $18.
And I want you to understand that that is ridiculous.
That could be.
Ridiculous.
Yes, it is. It's not enough.
$243 a month.
But the thing
It's
is,
ridiculous.
right, but she doesn't have any children in her house now.
She should, just a second, she should have been paying support for her child who was living with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm saying is...
It's very little.
All I'm saying is he's not blameless.
No.
And you should have, before you look towards a stranger, because she's a stranger to you, before you look to a stranger, you should have said to your son, who works a security job, get 2 jobs.
Right. And every time I needed something for Jeremy or Jeremy needs something, he asks his father, and his father gives him money for this and that. He has.
I'm not talking about giving his money for this and that. I'm talking about helping you pay the $475 a month that you say it takes to support a child.
Yes, more than that.
Believe me, it's more than that. It's just the roof and the food. But your first vision should not be to her. Your first vision should be to him.
That's why I go to him when we need extra things.
Good.
I don't go to her.
Now, what you want from her is the $18 a week she was receiving while he was in your care. Why didn't you send that to her, Mrs. Hood?
I was supporting my son. I picked him up. I took him places. I gave him money for things.
You're supposed to do that. You're his mother.
But that's not true, Your Honor.
I don't want to hear from you, sir. When I hear any kind of substantial contribution to your children's support, I will listen to you. But right now, I didn't hear any of that from your mother. I heard you took them and got them things that they needed. Not saying to your mother, here is the $475 a month that it takes to put a roof over his head and feed him. I'm going to give that to you, and then we'll worry about everything else. So you have to be quiet.
Would you like me to sit down?
No, you can stand next to your mother. You're supposed to take him and buy him things, madam.
Well, I know that. And I also give her support at the very beginning. Gave her the child support card. We get a little child support card.
$40. Shh.
And it was misused, and the child support agency told me that I wasn't supposed to give it to her because I still had custody of him.
I don't know what you mean. You gave her the child support card. What does that mean?
That's where the child support comes on a little, like, credit card instead of sending you a check in the mail. So I give it to her to help support, and I was told I wasn't supposed to do that because I have custody of him.
Well, that's ridiculous, Miss Hood. You may have legal custody on a piece of paper, but you weren't putting food in his mouth 3 times a day. So that's ridiculous. Why did you even ask somebody? If you had a card, if what they do is they don't give you the money, but they give you a card, and it's really taken off of the card, why did you even have a discussion with anybody about that? His grandmother had physical custody of him. His father was sending $18 a week support. As minimal as it is, it should have been sent to his grandmother.
At that time, I had 3 kids.
I'm speaking. This is not what we're talking about, 3 children. We're only talking about 1. So the question is?
Well, the fact about it is this is a divorce decree that I've had custody of the kids ever since.
What difference does it make?
That he abandoned. He denied his parental rights that I have here.
Listen to me. Let us not go back in history.
And then this...
Let's look at me. Let's not go back in history. This young man went to live with his grandmother 2 years ago when he was 16. I don't want to hear about when he was 2 or 5 or 7 or 9 or 11 or 13. He went to live with his grandmother at your request when he was 16, and he has remained there. Now, she could have pursued support against you while he was there. She did not. And I'm not entertaining that. I'm not entertaining that part of her claim. Support against you personally. I just want to know is that you have any valid reason why you didn't turn over the support that you were receiving for him from his father to his grandmother.
Because she, like I said, she had misused it, and then the power of attorney
How did
says
she
that it doesn't
misuse?
have...
Just a second. How did she misuse the $18 a week?
Buying dinner for the family and cigarettes for him.
No, I didn't.
Shh. Buying dinner for the family on $18 a week? That's ridiculous, Miss Hood. What kind of work do you do?
I did have a job as shipping and receiving.
Is right now what you're saying to me? I don't care what you did in the past. What kind of work do you do now?
I will be a flight attendant.
So the answer is you do not work now?
Because I lost my job because of her.
Is anything your fault? I want to know if anything's your fault. Now, something must have happened recently that got your dander up. You want to tell me what it is?
Yes. Back in November, her current husband choked one of my grandchildren, and the police were called.
Which grandchild?
Joshua, his brother.
His brother. And they went to court.
Not true, Your Honor.
Don't interrupt her. Go ahead.
Paperwork on this. He choked the child, and Jeremy told his mother that he will not speak to her again if he accepts that man back in the house after he choked his brother. Jeremy's definitely afraid of her ex-husband. That's why he's living with me. She took him back in the house. Joshua and Jeremy went to live with his father. She went to court and had child support doubled, and she has none of the children living with her. And that kind of got my goat.
Got it. Well, we'll get my vote too. Is the money still coming out of your check?
Yes, ma'am, every month, every
And
week.
the children are living with you?
Yes.
When did you go back to court?
I'm going to court February the 23rd for custody. I've got the motions filed in court to get him in school. I got him in school this month.
How old are the children?
16 and 15.
Well, if the children want to live with you, that's where they're going to live. Because at this age.
Because they don't want to listen to me.
Excuse me?
That's because they do not want to listen to me, and they feel
For whatever reason, 15-year-old and a 16-year-old are going to make judgments, and the court's going to assign them a lawyer. And if the lawyer says, my clients want to live with their father, and unless somebody can establish that it would place them in a neglectful situation, that's where they're going to live. You owe her the $18 a week that you've been receiving from her son.
Even though he's back in arrears of child support of $2,000 that he's owed me for years.
Just a second.
And I've raised the kids all by myself without him even being in there.
Just a second. Listen to me very carefully. If he took custody of your son and he was in arrears in child support, we would not be having this discussion. We are having this discussion because his mother took custody of your son, and his mother supported him. While you were receiving current support, not a lot, little bit, you were receiving current support for him, and you cannot do that. You really cannot do that. You should have sent that money each and every week to her and said, I know it's not much. It's all that your son gives me for his support. As little as it is, I'm giving it to you to defray his expenses. You got it?
As she was so inspired about support, why'd she catch in my children's bonds that were supposed to be for their education?
But
no. Speak. Let her finish. Don't interrupt.
To get my ex-husband furniture, a stereo system with surround sound, a $300 chair, if she's so concerned about support.
That has nothing to do with you. If she, listen to me, if she wanted to take the $18 a week and blow it when you gave her the $18 a week and she went and took the $18 and put it in a Goodwill box, that's her prerogative. We're not saying that the money that you received for this child's support was enough to support him. It was not. It wasn't enough to keep him in orange juice, but it belonged to her, not to you, because you were not fulfilling your custodial responsibility by maintaining a home for him, which is the moral reason why you receive support. You are not maintaining a home for him. His grandmother was. So his grandmother was spending substantially more than $18 a week to support him. You had the obligation of forwarding that money to her. There's no discussion about it. You got the money, you keep it for a month, and you say, here's $18 times 4.3. I'm sending it to you by the month rather than by the week because it's just too much trouble, because I know you've been taking good care of him. And I assume if she wasn't taking good care of him, you would not have permitted him to stay there as his mother. Okay. Now, Miss Miller.
Yes.
What she owes you for the child support is $1,028, because that's the support that you should have forwarded to her for the 2 years that this child was in her custody. That's all. Thank you. Judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you.
Dora Huff claims a strange son-in-law, Paul Veloff, owes for bail money she posted on his behalf.
Miss Huff, the defendant is your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law. I assume this is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that he owes you money for bail.
Yes, ma'am.
And that he agreed to pay you back once you had bailed him out, and he has declined to do so. Mr. Veloff says you made no agreement with him with regard to the bail money. You made an agreement with his wife. So if you want the bail money paid, get it from your daughter. That's your defense.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Veloff, how long have you been married?
13 years, 14 years.
13 or 14 years.
13.
You have children?
Yes, 2.
How many?
2.
When were you arrested, sir?
It was filed on July 4th, but I actually turned myself in on that Sunday, which would have been, I think, the 6th, 7th? Of July, I'm sorry.
7/7 of 06?
Yes.
Is this the first time you had been arrested, sir?
Yes.
And this was for domestic violence?
Yes.
And the domestic violence alleged that you either assaulted or threatened or harassed your wife?
Right.
Were you in or out of the house on the 7th of July?
In the house.
No. Okay. Mrs. Veloff, when did you complain about your husband's conduct to the police?
The incident of 4th of July.
Tell me about the incident.
We have been having marital problems for quite a while, and a recurring situation came up again that he was not working and taking care of his responsibilities. It escalated into a yelling argument that turned physical. Shortly after, well, the argument went on for quite a while. He was restraining me. I was not allowed. I was undressed coming out of the shower. He wouldn't allow me to get dressed. He wouldn't allow me to leave the master bedroom. Finally, when I did get out of the bedroom, I made it down to the lowest floor of the house, got a phone, and dialed 911. While I was on the phone with the dispatcher, he left the property. While he was gone, they dispatched 2 sheriff's vehicles to the house. They took my statement, took photos.
Do you have a copy of the statement, please? Do you have a copy of that police report?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. They took photographs of what?
They took photographs of the marks on my body and the damage to the home.
What kind of marks did you have on your body?
My arms were bruised where he had grabbed me and forcibly threw me on the bed. My neck was irritated and red.
Your Honor, I do have a copy of the...
I'd like to see them. Where were your children when all this was going on?
There was a 4th of July community picnic that my daughter was at, and my son was outside playing basketball with a friend of his. I believe, well, he was in the driveway. I think they were playing basketball.
How old are your children?
14 and 12.
What's the status of this protective order?
The restraining order?
Yeah, what's the status of the case?
The case was dismissed.
When was the case dismissed?
It went to trial while my mother and I were in Italy for 2 weeks. It was dismissed because I did not show to testify.
Why didn't you appear to testify?
I was in Italy.
Why did you go to Italy during the trial?
It was already pre-planned, the trip. All of the subpoenas for me to appear were in my mail when I got back.
Your Honor, this was a 2-week Mediterranean cruise. We had planned 7 months prior to take all the kids and grandkids, everybody.
Got it. But, Ms. Viloff, after he was arrested, because he turned himself in, according to your mother's complaint, he called you and asked you to bail him out, right?
Yes.
How much was your bail?
$2,000.
And why did you think your wife would bail you out when she was the one who filed the complaint?
Well, I called her because it started getting really rough in the jail, and I've never experienced anything like that. And I called her.
How rough was it?
They found knives, shanks.
So you wanted out of there?
Yeah, and it was Wednesday night. The other inmates were starting to get their commissary or whatever they buy for the week, and a lot of it was like cold medicine, and they were chopping it up and snorting it, and I could see attitudes change, and it started getting really scary.
So you were frightened?
Yes.
So you called your wife?
Yes, I did.
And what did you say to her?
I asked her to call my dad to see if he would bail me out.
Why didn't you call your dad?
Why didn't I call my dad?
That's exactly what I said. Why didn't you call your dad? Why are you calling the alleged victim instead of calling your father directly? Don't you speak to him?
Yes, I do.
So then why didn't you call your father yourself?
The phone calls I was able to make were very limited.
Well, I know, I understand they're very limited. I've been in the justice system a very long time. There's no reason that you're going to be able to give me that I'm going to be satisfied with, sir, as to why you didn't call your father yourself.
I don't know.
Ma'am?
Maybe your wife is going to tell me.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you call his father?
First of all, he called the house and spoke to our son, who then called me. So by the time I got the phone call, our son was frantic with worry, thinking that his father was in mortal jeopardy.
Okay.
And then I did go and call his father, and his father said no.
That's why you didn't call him.
No, that's not true.
Otherwise,
no.
sir, you know, if something doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. How old is your son?
14.
Before I would involve my 14-year-old son in the fact that I was incarcerated and I was frightened for my life, I would call my father. If I had a decent relationship with my father and if I felt that my father would want to protect me, I certainly wouldn't involve my teenage child. That's not being a protective parent.
I did not know he was going to answer the phone.
What kind of just a second. What kind of dumb answer is that?
I mean,
What kind of a dumb answer? So because he answered the phone, you unloaded on him?
I didn't unload.
Well, of course you did. Okay. So now you're between a rock and a hard place. You got your 14-year-old child saying you got to do something to get dad out of jail. You got his father who says, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not putting up any money for him. You don't have any money, so you call your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you say, you got to help me out here. You got to help me out. And she goes down and she puts up the bond. That's so far what happened.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, When you got out of jail, Mr. Veloff, who was there?
Who was there? My kids, my wife, and my mother-in-law.
And what did you say to your mother-in-law?
Thank you.
What else did you say to her? What else did he say?
And he hugged me, and he thanked me, and I told him two things. One, he had to get his act together, and two, because he didn't have a job, he had to pay me back, and he owned 2 cars, which he'd already told Tracy he would do. I expected him to sell one of the 2 cars.
To pay you back?
To pay me back for my credit card. I'm sorry.
And did he pay you back?
No, ma'am.
Why should your mother-in-law pay your bail?
I didn't ask her to.
No, you didn't ask her to. That's absolutely right, Mr. Veloff. You did not ask her to. But you promised to pay her back. But you promised to pay her back. You didn't ask her to, and absolutely, if you hadn't said to her, I'm going to pay you back, that unfortunately for Miss Huff, there would have been no recourse. The truth of the matter is, at the time that she put up the bail for her daughter and her grandchildren. Because as far as she was concerned, you could have rotted in hell. I'm sure. I'm sure. If she didn't have grandchildren, that's probably what she would have said to her daughter. Let him stay there. But she has grandchildren, and you can't do that when you have teenage grandchildren. You can't say, listen, you're going to let your father rot in jail, so he's going to call here and he's going to complain that somebody's going to shank him. Mr. Veloff, as you see, sir, I have zero sympathy for your position morally, and I have zero sympathy for your position legally. If you had not told your mother-in-law that you would pay her back.
I promised to get my act together and get a job.
Just a second. Just a second. Did you get your act together?
Yes.
Did you get a job?
Yes.
Good. Now you have money to pay her back. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,020. That's all. Step out.
Terry Taylor is suing her foster daughter, 20-year-old Christy Tomier, for SUV payments, parking tickets, and impound fees.
Ms. Taylor, the defendant is your former foster child.
That's correct.
She came to live with you as a teenager for a period of time, and you continued a relationship with her, according to your complaint, so that she felt comfortable enough to come back into your home subsequently, and you agreed at some point to co-sign for a truck for her so that she would be independent and be able to go to work and go to school and do stuff. So you did. And it was her understanding and your agreement and your contract that she was going to make the payments on this truck. Take your hands out of your pockets. She was going to make the payments on this truck. Well, the defendant did make payments on the truck for a period of time. She met a boy, got married, had a baby, not necessarily in that order, but she and her husband subsequently separated, and she stopped making payments on the truck. Not only did she stop making payments on the truck, but she couldn't find the right place to park, so she got some parking tickets, and ultimately her car was impounded, probably for those parking tickets. You were contacted by the bank. Cost you a whole bunch of money to get the car out of towing to pay off the car, and you want her to be responsible and take care of those bills. That's what the case is about.
Correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Go.
I paid on the car for 2 years, paid $3,000 on it. Up until 9/16 was my September, October, November, December. I missed 4 payments in a row.
You missed 4
payments in a row.
Okay. When was the last time you made a payment? In September?
August.
So you missed September?
Yes.
October, November, and December?
Yes.
You missed 4 months.
On Christmas Eve, I thought the vehicle was stolen because I went out to go home for the weekend, and the car was gone. And it was just odd. I thought that they had taken it back because the payments were late, and the night before...
No, they weren't late. They weren't made for 4 months. Late is when you miss a couple of days.
I wasn't working when my husband and I were married. He up and left one day. Since that point, I know it seems like I was irresponsible. Since that point, I got a place to live on my own, by myself, with no financial help.
Well, that is great. Why'd you get parking tickets? Because that's why the car was towed.
Because I parked in the wrong spot.
How many times?
Twice. And then I got another parking lot ticket down the street for being there for a meter or whatever. I got 2 more of those. So I had quite a few parking tickets.
How many?
I think 5 total, maybe 4.
How many?
I have 8
parking tickets.
Different kinds of tickets.
Yes.
Can I see it?
They're listed on the...
And when I found out the car had been taken, I still had 30 days to come up with the money. I called her 4 days later to let her know what happened, and I told her that I would come up with the money to get the car out, and I would do my best to start making payments on it again. She had
Doing
told me
your best doesn't help.
At the
Take your
time,
hands out of your pockets. Doing your best doesn't help. I mean, I'm not screaming and ranting and raving at you if your husband left you and left you with a baby and you were trying to get yourself together and you found a place to live, all of that is great. Then what you have to say to her, Ms. Tomir, is, and I know that you're looking upset, but what you have to say to her is, look.
I still had time to make the payments before she made the payments for me.
She's a co-signer on your loan. Her credit is destroyed because you didn't make payments for 4 months.
I still
did
had
you
time.
call?
Yes,
you didn't have. You don't have
did.
time.
The bank said I still had 30 days, and so did the £3 place.
You don't have time when you miss payments for 4 months. What you're supposed to do is, if you can, renegotiate with them and say, listen, I can't make these payments. Could I cut them in half? Could I cut them in a quarter? Things are difficult now. But you didn't do that. You didn't do that. And you didn't even call her and tell her that...
I did call her.
Did you call her and tell her you hadn't made the payments September, October,
We talked
November?
many times about it. Yes, we did, because we talked many times, and she's like, Christy, you just need to call him. And I said, I know, I haven't made the payments. And
Just
she
a second.
Call him.
I know, I haven't made the payments. That's not what she said to you. She said you have to call them and try to redo something with this loan.
And I did that, and I still had time before she paid up the money.
Just a second. Show me. You show me something in writing that the bank was willing to give you more time after you missed 4 payments. Show me.
They told me I don't have that.
Now, don't tell me what they told you. Show
I don't
me.
have that.
Of course you don't. And now, after she got the car out of towing, because I have the bills, she got the car out of towing, and she paid the bank off.
So my 30 days that I have doesn't matter?
Listen to me. I'm not telling you had 30 days. You can't show me that you had 30 days. Now that she had to get your car out of impound, which cost how much?
$360.
Okay, $360. In addition to what you owed them for 4 months. And the tickets.
Which were $695.
$695 for the tickets. Otherwise, you couldn't get the car out of impound. Do you understand? The likelihood of you having $1,100.
I had that money within 11 days.
$1,100 plus the 4 months that you owe them on the car is little to none.
I had the money to pay it all off within 11 days.
Then you should have paid her.
But I lost thousands of dollars. I'm paying for taxis. I don't have a vehicle. How should I have paid her?
Listen to me. If you had take your hands out of your pockets. If you had said to her before now, what's your first name?
Terry.
Terry, I appreciate everything you did for me. I understand what the problem is. I understand that I screwed up with you. May not have screwed up with other things, but I understand that I screwed up with you and your credit. I can give you $50 a month towards what I owe you for cleaning up after my mess. I don't want you to be out of money. I can't pay you all at once. I have other expenses to pay. I have other bills. I'll give you $50 a month. That's what you should do.
I tried calling her twice, and both times I got hung up on.
What did you say to her when you called?
The first time I called to tell her that the car wasn't stolen, that it had been repossessed, and I told her that within 3 weeks I would be able to get it out. 2 days later, she paid for it all to get out. So I not only lost the car, I lost a lot of money. And then I called her again right after I found out I was getting sued, and I was just like, you're suing me, you haven't even, we can't work this out any other way. And she said, no, we want our money back. You have 30 days to pay us or we're suing you. But I still had time on my account. Within 11 days, I could have had the vehicle out.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,089. That's all.
19-year-old Ashley Bowen is suing her former live-in boyfriend, 20-year-old Ross Welty, for utility bills and rent. Ross says Valerie destroyed his belongings.
Yeah, this is case number 345 on the calendar in the matter of Baum versus Welty. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Ms. Baum, you and Mr. Welty lived together for a while. You signed a 6-month lease, and then you moved out.
Yes.
Leaving a couple of months left to go on the lease, you believe Mr. Welty should be responsible for paying the rent on the apartment.
Yes.
Mr. Welty says that you left. It was not your agreement.
He's kicked me out.
He's paid enough. And he says that you came back into the apartment when he was not there and vandalized the apartment. He knows it was you because you admit, to which you are responding yes. Did you vandalize his apartment?
Yes.
When did you vandalize his apartment?
Like 2 days after I moved out.
Why did you vandalize his apartment?
Well, because in our lease it said that he was not allowed to have anybody else move in, and he had his friend move in. And so I took his friend's stuff and I put it outside.
Why wouldn't you want his friend to move in to be responsible for half the rent?
Because he wasn't paying. He would not pay the rent at all.
Who would not?
He wouldn't and his friend wouldn't.
How do you know that?
Because he wasn't working.
What about his friend?
He was barely working.
So you took his friend's stuff and you put it outside where?
In the parking lot.
Can't do that. Not a nice thing to do.
I know.
Well, at least you told me the truth. You see that? Did you do anything else in the apartment while you were there?
No.
Didn't rip out anything with a knife or anything else?
It was my stuff.
What did you rip with a knife?
Pillowcase.
What were you in such a bad mood about, Miss Baum?
That was the day I moved out of the apartment, and I just got off of work. He wasn't working at all. As soon as I came home, he was like, well, I'm going out. I told him he wasn't, and he left anyway. He called my dad, and my dad came and picked me up, and I moved out of the apartment.
Now, Mr. Welty, you weren't working.
Oh, man.
Is there any reason why you weren't working?
Just couldn't exactly find a job that I wanted to keep.
Well, who'd you expect to support you?
I didn't expect nobody to support me at all.
Well, somebody's had to pay the rent. Who was paying the rent?
She was.
That means she was supporting you.
Yeah, until that point.
Well, then, listen to me, Mr. Welty. How old are you?
20.
You want me to think that you're an intelligent young man, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
When somebody's paying your bills, they're supporting you. Why should this young lady support you?
Well, I gave her money.
You're not that cute.
I gave her money all the way up to the time I kicked her out in June.
How much money did you give her?
Half the rent, $320.
Even when you weren't working?
Yeah.
So let's say you gave her half the rent up until the time you, according to you, kicked her out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you kicked her out of the apartment, I assume you kicked her out because you said, I'm going out with my friends, and she says, no, you're not, because you're not working, I'm working. And when I come home, I don't want you to tell me you're going out hanging around with your friends. I assume that's what was going on in your head.
Yes.
And what was going on in your head is nobody controls me, I go where I want to go.
Nah, she's crazy.
Well, that's not crazy, sir.
No.
Let me tell you something. If I had a boyfriend who was laying home eating bonbons all day, watching soap operas and Judge Judy at the appropriate time, and I came home from working all day and he said to me, I'm going to hang out with my buddies,
It wasn't like that,
listen to me.
It was not like that.
It would really annoy me.
But it wasn't like that. She'd come home, I would go out, I'd come back home, she'd break everything.
Well, why did you think she was mad at you, sir?
Because I'd go out for an hour with my friends.
Where'd you go?
It would just be like my dad's house. Usually, it's where I always go, to my dad's. And she don't let me go to my dad's house. She don't let me going nowhere.
Oh, you should be happy if you went to Mars.
Well, I was working
Listen
3
to
jobs.
me, and you got a hot temper anyway. You know, I could tell, Miss Baum, that you got a hot temper because you went inside and you cut up the joint. So, but bottom line is, you told her to leave. You called her father and said, come and get her.
Yeah, basically.
Well, then if that's what you did, then you're responsible for the rent.
I don't think I'm responsible for really anything, because the way she is.
Well, you're wrong there.
Uh,
You're wrong there, Prince.
I don't think so.
Let me tell you something. If you have an apartment and you sign a lease, a 6-month lease, and you throw out, lock out, get rid of the person who is responsible for the other half of the rent, you pay for it yourself. Now, who did you move in?
I didn't move anybody. My friend James was going to stay with me for like 2 nights.
So James was going to stay with you, not because you were afraid of the dark, right?
No. Because he just moved back from Colorado at the time. He's right. That was it. He was not going to stay longer than that. And she knows that.
What kind of work did you do?
I did security.
They should have more stringent licensing laws for security people. How old were you when you left school? Quiet! How old were you when you left school?
17.
Did you graduate?
Yes, ma'am.
After you graduated, what did you do?
Worked at Walmart for a while, and then I did security.
What kind of security do you work?
Industrial, like shipyards.
Why weren't you working last year?
Because, well, I quit that job, so I went to England in March.
What did you go to England for?
That's where my mother lives.
How long did you stay?
2 weeks.
How much you stuck for on the time that was left on the lease?
It was $3,675.09.
For how many months?
From July till September, and then June.
When did you move out?
June 1st.
When did the lease expire, in December?
July 15th.
You moved out in June?
Yes.
So that's a month.
She never took her name off the lease.
He didn't go to the leasing office. We're supposed to sign a paper saying we're moving out 2 months before, and he never went and did that. So we had 2 more extra months of rent to pay.
She never got her name taken off the lease at all.
Taken. She never got herself taken off the lease.
Mm-hmm.
When did you know she had not taken her name off the lease?
She has never, I mean...
Did you know that all along?
Yeah, I still talk to her.
Just listen to me.
I still
Just
talk to her
answer
every
my
day.
questions. Don't speak until I ask you a question. Then you answer the question, then I ask you another question. Do you understand? When did you know that she was still liable on the lease? Did you know it all the time?
Yes, ma'am.
When you decided to stay beyond July, you stayed in August?
I told her.
So listen to me. Just answer my question. Did you stay in August?
For like half the month.
That's August. Did you pay August's rent?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Because I told her that she could have the apartment. I didn't want to be there. I wasn't even living there myself.
You just said you stayed there until mid-August.
No, my stuff was. I never stayed there.
If your stuff is there, you're there, Prince. If your stuff is there, you're there.
I told her she could move back in, so I didn't want to be there.
Oh, you are such an idiot. It's really very, very hard. Who do you work for now?
Who I work for now? It's a golf course.
Doing what?
Customer service. Just drive around the golf cart all day.
That sounds like a perfect job for you. Miss Baum, I want you to listen to me very carefully. He may be responsible for 4 months. I'm only charging him for 3. I'm charging you for a month for your stupidity in hooking up with him.
She still does, by the way.
Does she?
Yeah,
No.
she still does. 2 weeks ago.
Well, I want to tell you something, Mr. Welty. I don't get it. There must be something in your cologne that I don't get from here to there. Because quite frankly, Miss Baum, I don't get it. Is what he's telling me accurate, that you two socialized 2 weeks ago? Is that what you're telling me?
We socialized, but not anymore. I'm over it.
All I want to know is, did you socialize with him 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
I should have charged you for more than the month. Sometimes you got to pay for being dumb. Understand that?
Yes.
So if you got to pay a month's rent, you got to pay for a month's rent. You should have taken your name off the lease. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $1,920. Who is this?
My mother.
I can't say to you, go home and give her a good beating. You know, she's too big for that. But somebody's got to put some sense into her head.
Can I say something?
Yes.
My husband hired him to work for us so that he would have a job. He couldn't even keep that.
Listen to me. He's challenged. He can't help himself. He really can't help himself. He's going to find his own water level. Right now, driving around in a golf cart sounds perfect for him. And your daughter, if she's working 3 jobs and trying to make something of herself, then you should be very grateful that he's out of the picture. The only problem is she keeps going back for some unearthly reason. I'm just trying to figure out what the reason is.
Me too.
Well, then try to convince your daughter that this is not something that she wants to attach herself onto. Because if she attaches herself onto somebody who's challenged, she's going to have children who are challenged. God forbid. That's all. Step out.
Beth Garcia claims her boyfriend's ex, Jamie Petola, vandalized her car by keying it.
Miss Garcia, the defendant is your current boyfriend's ex-girlfriend.
And also the mother of his child.
Where is your boyfriend today?
He couldn't make it because he's had too many issues with her and pending court problems with her that he has to take care of. So that's why he couldn't make it.
He didn't have any pending court matters today, did he?
None at all. None at all. He never
None at all.
has.
But he decided to take the high road and just be absent, even though he probably created all of these problems to begin with. Now, when did you last live with, what's his first name?
E. Lincoln.
E. Lincoln?
E. Lincoln.
E. period Lincoln?
Yes.
Well, what's his first name?
E. Lincoln.
There's no period between the E and the Lincoln. It's just E. Lincoln.
E. Lincoln. When did you first live with E. Lincoln?
When was the first I lived with him?
Yeah. First, give me the year.
Probably it was 2001.
And when did you last live with him?
2005.
When in 2005?
Around February, March.
And when did you start to be involved with Mr. Lincoln?
We officially were involved in October.
Of 2006?
2005.
Before a friend.
So there was a little overlapping?
No.
Yes. I was living with them and she knew.
Okay, so there was a little overlap.
Yeah.
But they weren't together.
Yeah.
Hey. There was some overlapping. Now, it is your claim, Ms. Garcia, that the defendant vandalized your car, not on one occasion, but on multiple occasions.
Yes.
And despite the fact that you never saw her vandalize your cars, you have proof by way of admissions that she did, in fact, vandalize your
Yes.
cars. The car was vandalized.
On the morning of October 23rd, 2005 was when I noticed it, so it was that night.
Okay. And what was the nature of the vandalism?
She had keyed.
Don't tell me what she did.
She keyed
Someone.
profane
No,
words.
listen to me.
Someone. Someone keyed profane words on my hood, my driver's door, and the back driver's door, because it's a 4-door, and put key marks on the rest of it, and knocked off the driver's side mirror.
Okay. Do you have photographs of the car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them. Wow. Now, with regard to this incident in October, what proof do you have that the defendant was responsible?
Well, before my involvement with E. Lincoln, I believe he said it was like in 2002.
Don't tell me what he said to you. That's hearsay.
In 2002, his vehicle was vandalized the same exact way.
You cannot tell me anything that he said to you, because that is hearsay. Do you have any proof that the defendant committed that vandalism on your
No.
car?
I have a police recording because on the night of January 3rd, 2006, she was calling my phone saying, I'm going to vandalize your vehicle again. My roommate...
Okay, so you have a recording.
Yes, and the police report that stating that the police...
Let me see it, please.
That he heard the recording.
Where is the recording now?
They couldn't get it through, but we do have it, but it's real fuzzy. But the
She
police
probably messes with the cop. She probably
No.
messes with the cop.
No.
She probably talks to the cop.
I'm not speaking to you.
Sorry.
Car was damaged again when?
The next damage was on March 6, 2006.
Okay. With regard to the March incident, you told the police that it could have been any one of 3 people.
Right. Sorry.
I'm already convinced, madam, that you damaged her car in October. Already convinced based upon the police report. You want to be responsible for March too?
No.
Then keep your mouth shut. You told the police with regard to the March incident that it could have been any of 3 people. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Those 3 people are her friends.
I don't care. You're not responsible for your friends, Ms. Garcia. So you have no proof with regard to March 6th. Is that correct?
That's correct, but then there was another one.
When?
April 10th. And that one, both the taillights were broken off and both the side mirrors were broken off.
Did you have any conversation with the defendant about what happened to your car?
After the January 3rd conversation was the only conversation.
Okay. You want to explain yourself, madam, with regard to the October 23rd, 2005? You want to explain yourself to me?
I didn't do it.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Then why, madam, when the police got you on the phone, which they did?
Why isn't that? She probably talks to
Just
the
a
cop.
second. Would you get her out of here? Thank you. Get her out of here. Why did you hang up the phone when a policeman identified himself on the phone?
Because when a person says the police are on the phone, you don't know if you could go to jail for something stupid or not. She played on my phone up until she called the cops on purpose, and then that's when I called back and was arguing with her because she told my son when he stayed at her house with my ex-boyfriend that she don't like me and all this other type of stuff. So I called her and was, arguing with her, whatever. And then she was like, you did this to my car, whatever. She had the police right there. So he probably was hanging out at her house because she talks to a lot of people and she goes downtown and she talks to cops and stuff. So he probably was sitting right there, maybe. Maybe that's the case. I'm serious.
Let me see the estimate for the damage to your car on October 23rd,
This is the one from
2005.
the October
Police
23rd.
officers indicated that they heard the recording. Your recording.
I didn't get no police report.
But I got it.
They didn't say nothing to me.
Listen to me. I got it. I'm speaking. You don't have to help me.
She don't really know who did it, nothing to her car. It's so many people. She sleeps around with people she don't know.
Listen, Miss Attitude, you were annoyed with her because she was bad-mouthing you to your... I'm speaking. This is what you just told me. You're shaking your head no.
No.
You're shaking your head no. You just told me you were angry with her because she had bad-mouthed you to your son. That's why you were yelling at her on the phone.
Right.
Because she had bad-mouthed you to your son. That was the conversation that you said was overheard by the police officer.
Right, then
that was... Listen to me. That was after her car was vandalized in October.
Why didn't I call her before and argue with her if I messed up her car or somebody else was messing up her car? Just because I called and argued with her, that don't got nothing to do with me.
Garcia played officers a message on her cell phone left today by Jamie stating, amongst other things, that she was going to damage her vehicle once again, according to the officer now implicating herself in the previous incident. Ryder was present when Jamie then called back Garcia and heard her repeatedly use profanity when she was addressing Garcia. Ryder attempted to speak with Jamie, however, she hung up on the phone when the Ryder identified himself as a police officer.
Right, I hung up.
She or her friends probably did the damage to your car. Unfortunately, you can't prove it, but you can certainly, you've established to my satisfaction, based on the fact that she was angry with you, based upon the fact that she knows that E. Lincoln was two-timing her. You may or may not have known it, but she knew it.
Yes.
October 23rd, 2005, was that on or about the same time that you had this discussion with your son?
No, it just was recently when the first time I caught her, the time that she taped me.
That was not the first conversation with us. I had to have my phone cut off.
No, that wasn't just recently, madam. It wasn't just recently. That was 4 months ago.
I know. That was the last time I talked to her.
How did you get her phone number?
She called my phone playing on it with her phone number. That's how I got it.
So what did you call her back for?
Because she was arguing and playing on my phone, so I cussed her out for playing on my phone.
You also said to her that you were going to damage her car again.
I did not say that.
So the police are lying?
Yeah.
The police are lying?
No, I don't think the police are lying. I think maybe it's one of her friends or something.
No. Police were lying?
No, I'm not going to say the police were lying, but...
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,619. That's all. Stay away from her car.
Kate Vermeulen is suing her ex-husband, James Vermeulen, for the unpaid balance on a Saturn he totaled.
Mrs. Vermeulen, this is your former husband, and according to your complaint, you swapped cars with each other because your mother was coming to visit. You needed a larger car. That was last summer. So it's nice to hear that there was at least a reasonable relationship that you had, so that you accommodated your former wife, because you have children together, so that she would use a larger car that was yours. And in any event, you wrecked her car. And there was an outstanding loan on the car. The car was, in fact, totaled. And your former wife feels as if you should be responsible for the difference between what the insurance company paid on the car and the amount of the loan that she's still responsible for. And that amount is $3,634. Is that correct?
Yes.
You have a counterclaim because you say at the time she borrowed your car, she had a minor fender bender, but damaged the bumper of the car.
Correct.
To the tune of about $800, and she should pay that.
Yes.
That's your counterclaim. But let's get to the big ticket item here, Mr. Vermeulen. When did you total her car?
I believe it was August 10th. I was on my way to work.
8/10. And when did you damage the bumper to his car?
Actually, it was so minor that I don't have the exact date.
Okay, but you called and told him about it?
Yes.
Okay, and you have a picture of it, I'm sure.
Yes, I do. I have a picture of the damages that were done to the bumper and actually an imprint.
Okay.
Your Honor, it was September 5th, I do believe, when he ruined my car, when he totaled my vehicle.
Why do you think that it was August 10th, sir?
I thought that was the day.
Well, it wasn't. It was September.
In September?
Yeah, because she would have a police report with regard to it.
I didn't know that there was any police report. I wasn't charged in the accident.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do.
May I see it, please? So it wasn't in August, it was September. That's a big difference.
Sorry.
How do you account for that difference?
I don't know, Your Honor. I was working at that time there. I wasn't really paying attention to the date.
When did you swap cars?
Probably a couple days before her mother arrived. She was coming in for England. Near the end of the summer, which was...
In August?
In August.
Now, it's clear that, according to your answer, sir, that the accident was your fault, that your foot got stuck, according to you, on the gas pedal.
Between the gas pedal and the brake, Your Honor.
So it was your fault, right?
I guess if that's the way that you see it, yes, Your Honor.
Well, sir, unless you were driving a very unique car. The gas pedal was put in by the factory. It remained in the same spot. The brake was put in by the factory. It remained in the same spot. You were familiar with the car. You had had it for some time. According to your answer, my foot got stuck between the gas and the brake. You want me to read you what you signed?
No, Your Honor.
So if the foot got stuck between the gas and the brake, it's your fault.
Okay.
Those two things didn't move together.
I was wearing my work boots at the time, which are larger than my way to work. And it is a sports car. The gas pedals are closer together. I drive a truck, Your Honor.
Well, whose fault is that, sir? The car's fault or your fault?
It was an accident.
No, sir. If you're wearing big boots and it's a small car, You take your boots, you put it in the back of the car, and you wear shoes that don't get stuck between the gas pedal and the brake. The car can't accommodate your work boots, right?
Right, Your Honor.
You have to accommodate the car, right?
Correct.
So it's your fault. Now tell me why you believe that you're not responsible for the difference between what the insurance company paid and what your former wife has to pay on the loan.
I believe it's not my fault due to the fact that I wasn't charged with the accident, reckless driving, careless driving. I had a medical report that says that there was no drugs or alcohol involved. I also had her insurance company clear me of all liabilities in relations to her car.
You made babies with him. Just because, sir, you weren't found guilty of a crime, that there was no drugs, alcohol, you weren't speeding, doesn't mean that the accident wasn't your fault. It was your fault. You just said to me I was wearing big work boots. This was a sports car. It doesn't accommodate those kind of shoes. My foot got stuck between the two pedals, and I lost control of the car. And I just tried to explain to you what a normal person of reasonable intelligence would understand, that the car can't accommodate your shoes. Your shoes have to accommodate the car. Now, do you have a picture of the damage you did to the bumper of your car?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
I'd like to see it. And an estimate on having it fixed.
I have an estimate right here.
Sir, you brought me an estimate from this place for $1,154?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, would you explain to me why?
I'm only asking to cover the parts, the actual bumper itself, and have it painted there. I'm not asking for taxes, labor, insurance there. Originally, I asked her to pay for half because she is still entitled on her vehicle. She's entitled on the insurance, and she's still
Did you have
liable.
insurance on the car?
Yes, I did.
And what was the deductible?
$500, Your Honor.
So that all you're going to pay for is $500.
And then you're going to have a claim with your insurance company, and your insurance will go up. I decided to pay for the claim out of pocket rather than going through my insurance company and having my deductibles raised.
Well, what do you think's going to happen to her insurance, sir? Because you totaled her car. What do you think is going to happen to her insurance company that had to pay out a totaled car?
I'm quite aware that she's going to have a claim with her insurance company, and her deductible will probably go up as well as her insurance payments.
So you mean you want me to give you a benefit and not her?
I'm not asking for special treatment.
Yes, you are, sir. What you're saying is I decided that I didn't want to go through my insurance. So I decided to pay for it myself. And therefore, instead of just paying for the deductible, which I believe should be responsible for paying, if you in fact fix the car, then what you're saying is I want her to pay the additional amount, which is $822, which is the cost of the bumper, which is what you're suing for. Because if I went through the insurance, my insurance premiums would go up. That's
Correct.
what you're saying to me.
Yes.
But her insurance premiums are going to go up substantially more than yours, sir, because they had to pay out on a new car, right?
Correct, Your Honor.
Say nothing. You had a $500 deductible. You had to pay out $3,634. From that, I'm deducting $500. I'm awarding you on your claim $3,100. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now I want to see where you fixed the car. Do you have a bill for fixing the car?
That was a quote there. I've had the work done since
Where?
I paid for the parts.
Show me.
I don't have that with me, Your Honor.
Well, why did you bring me this, sir?
That is a quote of what it would cost at a body shop to get it done. What I paid for out of pocket was the parts and the paint.
Why, sir, wouldn't you bring me the actual cost of what it cost to fix the car?
I didn't have the bills at the time. It was short notice. I didn't care at the time, Your Honor. I didn't really save the bills there. I didn't plan on coming to court. I didn't think I was going to be in court today.
When did you get this?
When did I got that?
Yes.
3 days before I knew I was going to be in court.
Well, instead of put your hand down. Instead of getting this estimate for work that was never going to be done because according to you already did the work, right?
Correct.
So this is bogus.
It's not bogus.
This is bogus. So instead of wasting the time to take the car in to see what it would be to fix the car, which according to you already fixed, so it would be difficult for them to give you an estimate on fixing a car that was already fixed because you said you fixed it. Why didn't you, instead of getting this estimate, go back to the place where you bought the parts and say, I lost a copy of the bill. Can I please have a copy of the bill for the parts?
I could ask for the original copy. I could send them to you.
Why did you waste time getting this? instead of getting the receipts for the actual work?
I have no answer for that, Your Honor.
Well, then you're not getting a thing. Strike it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,634. Your counterclaim is dismissed. You did a lot of fast talking, sir. Did not impress me. That's all. Step out.
Geraldine Brady says her daughter and son-in-law, Cassie and Cliff Yelvington, falsely accused her of abusing their daughter. The defendants are countersuing for charges filed by Geraldine.
Miss Brady, this young lady is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is your husband.
Yes, sir.
According to your complaint, some time ago, your daughter and her husband had a small baby. That baby was removed from their custody by the state because of abuse, and the baby was placed in your custody.
Yes, ma'am.
You had her for approximately a year?
20 months, Your Honor.
And after 20 months, there was a reunification process, and she was ultimately returned to her parents.
Yes, Your Honor.
You now have that child and another child.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint is that there came a point where your daughter and son-in-law made some false allegations about you, which required you, because you have a teaching position, to retain an attorney in order to dispute those allegations. And you want them to pay for that attorney and for the emotional distress that you went through from something. Your daughter and her husband say that there came a point when they were concerned over something that their daughter had told them when you were visiting with her, and they had every right to report that. And they are counterclaiming because they say that you have embarked upon a course of trying to interfere with the reunification process by making allegations against the Child Protective Services. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When was the child originally removed from your custody?
January 13th of 2005.
How old was she?
She was approximately 3 months old.
And what was the nature of the abuse that she suffered at 3 months old?
Some people that we thought were friends, and their youngest daughter was going through and put bite marks on our child.
Over what period of time?
A week or two.
You pled guilty to abuse or neglect?
Neglect.
And you understand that you neglected her?
Yes.
As did you?
I wasn't there. I was at work. I was working out of town for the period that this had happened.
The entire time?
It had happened within a week. I was out of town for the whole week.
Now, when the child was with you, did the parents visit?
Yes, ma'am.
At your house?
Initially, they had supervised visitation at my house, and due to the deteriorating situation, I asked for their visitation to be moved to a visitor center.
Well, that's part of their counterclaim, that if you hadn't forced the visitation to be at a visitation center, they might have been reunified with their child earlier. So I would like you to tell me, Miss Brady, what caused you to report this deteriorating situation?
They were coming over to my house, and I was allowing them wide open visitation. They could come, sit comfortably. I fed them. I permitted them to have any length of visitation they wanted. That was approximately June of 2005. Cliff went into court and claimed that he was paying child support to me, and I had not received any child support from them whatsoever. Also, when they came, they were bringing some people over with them. I didn't mind his family members, immediate family members, like his sisters and Kaylee's little cousins, but they started bringing strangers over.
Who would you bring over to the house?
My cousin.
Why would you do that?
We checked with her first. We told her that we were going to bring over my niece and my cousin, and she
Why
said
would
she
you
didn't
bring
have a problem.
anybody?
Because she would not come over down to Orlando so that my family could see my daughter, and my family wanted to see my daughter because they hadn't seen her since she was born.
Just a minute. What does that have to do with little cousins?
It's not. She was like 13 years old.
So what? This is for you and your wife. Visitation is for you and your wife. How many cousins did you bring to the visitor center?
We didn't take anybody to the visitation center because it was done during the week whenever everybody was working.
Right. So Miss Brady was taking care of business that you should have been taking care of, and if she said to you, don't bring people.
She never told me not to bring people.
Did you tell him not to bring people?
No.
Well, how was she supposed to be a mind reader?
Well, I did object to one person's presence. He was supposedly a friend of Brandy's, his older sister, and I did object to it to Cassie.
And what did she say?
She just shrugged her shoulders and made an excuse.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you got tired of all these people in your house?
Yes.
So you asked that the visitation be at someplace else?
Yes.
Were you going to visitation every weekend with your daughter?
At the center, it wasn't on the weekend. It was only during
At your mother's house?
We were going there about 3-4 days a week.
So that was great.
Us.
That was great.
Yes.
Should have kept it simple.
We didn't know that there was a problem until she sprung it on us at the last minute, saying that there's visitation at the center now instead of at her house.
Okay. Should have been smart enough to figure it out.
If she would have came up to us and said, hey, I have a problem with some of the stuff that's going on, we would have done what we could to correct it.
Mr. Yeldington, you may be right. She probably should have said something to you before she moved it, but that's not a legitimate lawsuit. You should have been smart enough to keep it simple. Go with your wife, sit with your 3-month-old daughter, bond with her, spend as much time with her as you can, and not involve the rest of your family. That's just not smart to do. Could she have told you? Absolutely. Is that a lawsuit? Absolutely not. Now, the child was ultimately reunified when?
September the 15th, 2006.
Tell me what happened after September the 15th.
Well, there was one visit that I went to pick her up at. Josh, my grandson, went to pick her up. I had visitation with her every other weekend. And I noticed there was like a mark on the side of her face. Well, when I got her home, it looked like a full-blown handprint on the left side of her face.
Josh, just stand up, please. Josh, you went to pick the baby up?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see any mark on her face?
Yes, ma'am.
Describe it to me.
It was marks on her face, and there was like some bruising right here.
Did you ask her what happened?
No, ma'am.
Did you?
She wasn't that verbal at that time.
Okay, fine. Do you remember what month this
September 2006, towards the end.
So you reported it?
Yes, I did, to the caseworker, and I took pictures.
You have pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see them, please.
Here's the originals.
Very hard to see any mark.
Right.
Oh, I see the bruise in the middle of her lip. That I
Right.
do see.
Yeah. That was on a separate occasion.
And then in October of 2006, I see a large black and blue mark on her forehead.
That's it.
Okay. You did the very wise thing and the right thing to notify the caseworker. You understand that, don't you?
Yes, I'm trying to recall on what these marks were.
Yeah, because we were never notified by the department that there was any marks on her.
Or by my
well,
mother.
But you do understand that being a responsible person, knowing the history of this child.
Yes, ma'am. But what I'm saying is, if there was a allegation made to the department, I think the department would have, at least done an investigation on it. There was no investigation done.
Should have done an investigation on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Whether they did or not is another story. No question about that. Okay, what happened next, Miss Brady?
In January of 2007, I had picked up Kaylee from their home, and when I was giving her a shower, I noticed what appeared to be like burn marks, like in a circle on her butt. And I did call DCF. The DCF investigator did tell me, take her to the hospital, have her examined by the hospital.
And did you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a report from the hospital?
No.
Because you're not the parent.
Right, and I didn't have custody of her at that time.
You have a report from the hospital on this incident?
We do not have it. We gave the copy to our caseworker because we were notified of the allegation. And the moment I was notified, I took my daughter down to the hospital, had her examined, and then also told them to call up the sheriff's department and told them I want to do everything by the book because this allegation is ridiculous.
Did you get a report when Miss Brady took her to the hospital?
Not from the hospital, but I do have the report with the department.
I'd like to read it. Are you trying to toilet train your child?
Yes, Your Honor.
Does your daughter have a psychiatric history?
No. After this point, I think she should.
Well, it is clear to me that based upon this, somebody observed marks and thighs that were clearly visible 2 days after your mother-in-law took the child to the hospital.
That right there would be the allegation that Miss Brady put against us for my daughter.
No, my dear.
Because our caseworker...
Kaylee has excoriated red marks on her buttocks and thigh. That's an observation, sir. That is not Miss Brady's observation. That's an observation either by a physician at the emergency room or the caseworker. It says, describes them. They're on her thighs. They're about 2 inches long. The marks on her lower buttocks looks like they may have been from sitting on the toilet for a long period of time.
Which she was not. And the doctors that we took her to and the investigators and everybody told us that they
Don't tell me what anybody told you. Show me a report. This is the only report that I have.
As far as her sitting on the potty for too long, she liked to play on the potty and try to be a big girl, and she would sit there herself. We didn't force her to stay there. And the marks on her thigh were chafing from her diaper because we went for a walk that morning before my mother picked her up.
You also had an excuse for the bite marks she suffered on her body. You claimed that that was not your fault. It is your fault. Whether you did the biting or you permitted this child to be, for over a week's period of time, bitten by another child, that's your fault. And just because a 2-year-old wants to sit on the toilet for a long time doesn't mean that a parent who is exercising parental responsibility allows a child to do that to such an extent that the child has welts on her bottom. Child should not have marks on their thighs from chafing from a diaper if all you have to do is take care of her, which is what the two of you have to do, take care of her. So far, Miss Brady, you did everything right.
Thank you.
Now, would you please tell me why you were forced to hire a lawyer?
Well, throughout this 20 months, they've made numerous allegations.
Uncross your arms.
Against me, but then they made a very serious allegation against me July 26, 2006. And I think it was in retaliation because things didn't go very well for them in court.
What do you mean things didn't go?
I guess that day, I guess they were expecting to be reunited with their child that day in court, and it didn't come about. And I also was badgering them about the child support that they owed me. And we had left court, I had gone, and then next thing I know, I'm getting a call from the caseworker to take Kaylee to a hospital or a doctor immediately for a sexual exam because the allegation had come from Cassie or Cliff.
That said what?
That said they felt that the child had been sexually abused while she was in my care.
Really?
And this really was...
What made you think that?
She would shy away from men. She would not go near them. Like if I would go to pick her up, and I mean, whenever I'd walk around, she would run right up to me. And if I'd go to pick her up, she would curl up in a ball and start crying. So what I did is I told my caseworker, this is what's happening. I don't know what to think about it. I just figured I should notify you about it. And where it went from there was that they put in the abuse allegation for...
Against who?
Against her mother.
You're crazy. Something wrong with you. And you're a nasty person, too.
How am I a nasty person?
You're a nasty person because you retaliated against somebody who took on a responsibility that you and your wife couldn't take care of, which is taking care of a 3-month-old child. I assume that Miss Brady, once she raised her own children, didn't plan on nor desire to raise a 3-month-old baby. The reason she had to do that was in order to prevent your 3-month-old daughter from going into a foster care situation. Because the two of you neglected her, minimally neglected her, perhaps abused her. So she was for 20 months. And instead of kissing her feet, which you should have done.
We tried.
You accused this teacher, this person who cleaned up after your mess, of abuse. That's why you're not a very nice person. Because I have a sense that you rule the roost in your house.
Actually,
that's my sense. My sense is also that your wife could use a little psychiatric intervention. And if you don't see to it that that happens, you now have 2 children?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
It's not going to be the last time that your children are the subject of intervention by the state. So if you rule the roost in your house, and if you're not the one who's abusing your children, I suggest that you get your wife some help. How much did you spend on a lawyer?
$600.
That you pay her back. How much support did you ultimately give her for the time she took care of your daughter?
We came up to a verbal agreement that if she claimed Kaylee on the tax return, we would
You
not have
didn't
to pay
answer my question.
We
I
didn't
said
give
how
her
much?
any money because we had a verbal contract that if she claimed her on her tax return, we wouldn't have to pay child support anymore.
The child support wasn't ordered until 2006.
It doesn't have to be ordered. Does it have to be ordered for you to watch your child so that she doesn't get bitten?
We were giving my daughter diapers, clothes, anything that she needed.
Who cares if you give somebody diapers?
Okay, and then she comes out
Who
and tells the
cares
courts,
if you give a baby diapers?
I understand that, ma'am, but then she comes out and tells the courts that she thinks that me saying I'm not going to pay for her bills, not my daughter's, hers, is unfounded because she actually came out and said she wanted this much for this much for this, and this much for this, and one of those being cable, and my 3-month-old daughter wasn't watching cable.
Mr. Yelvington, so instead of doing something, you did nothing. Exclude the cable. You didn't even protect your 3-month-old daughter.
Yes, we did. As soon as...
No, you didn't, because your wife had to, of necessity, fed, bathed, and changed this baby over a week's period of time. And as soon as she saw the first bite mark on this child, that child should have been removed from the environment. She chose not to do that. And if you were in communication with your wife, and if there's not something wrong with her mentally, she would have told you that the 3-month-old child had been abused by somebody in that house. And if you were any sort of a parent, you would have come off the road and said, I don't care where we're going, we'll go to a shelter in order to protect her. Instead, you allowed this child to be abused over a week's period of time, according to your wife. And instead of kissing her feet, you made her life miserable. That's your mother. 25 years from now, you're not going to know who he is, but she will always be your mother. And you will always be able to count on her to clean up after you, not him. And if you need mental help, get it. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am, but there is one thing. I was not able to notify my husband of the marks because the people that we were staying with would not allow me to use the phone, and I had no...
Crawl out! Abe Lincoln walked 10 miles to school. If your child is being abused, you leave and go to a shelter. What's wrong with you?
Where we lived, there was no shelters nearby.
Go to a police station. Where did you live? In the Yukon? Quiet. You go to a shelter. You go to a police station. You go someplace. Or you don't let your daughter out of your sight.
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't say anything.
Okay.
You're both working now?
Yes.
Perfect. Your counterclaim for nonsense is dismissed. You're asking for $1,600, which includes infliction of emotional distress, which you've had, and your attorney's fees.
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all. Step out.
Thank you.
18-year-old student Nikki Frazier and guardian Sam Suter are suing Nikki's mother, Stacy Hebb, for child support costs. Nikki says her mom won't turn over child support she receives from her father.
Mr. Suter, your complaint is that you and your family were nothing but kind to the defendant. She was having some difficulty, and she was unemployed several years ago. Her daughter and your daughter were friends since grade school, and you volunteered to give her a home.
Yes, ma'am.
When she was 16. How did you do in their home, in the Suter home? Did you do okay?
Yes.
Did you graduate yet?
Oh, I graduate in a couple weeks.
What are you doing after graduation?
I want to go to college.
How did you do in high school?
I make good grades.
She's been AB honor roll all through high school.
Did you apply to college?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because the application fees are like $50 for each application, and my mom told me she'd help me pay for them, but she never helped me pay for it.
So, Mr. Suter, this is your lawsuit. Ms. Fraser lived with you for 2 years, and you got no support for her from her mother. You did not even seek support.
No, ma'am.
But then you found out that Ms. Hebb was getting support for Nikki from Nikki's father, and you feel as if that's unfair.
Somewhat, yes.
This is not rocket science, Ms. Hebb. How long have you been divorced from Nikki's father?
Since she was about 6 or 7.
Do you have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
Are the other children also the product of this marriage?
No, ma'am.
And how much do you receive from Nikki's father for her support?
$50 a week.
What did you do with the money since 2003?
When she has called and said that she didn't have any food in the house and she needed me to take her to eat, I would feed her. If she's needed personal hygiene items, I've taken her. I've paid her cell phone bills. And yes, I did tell her that I would pay for her application fees. She never came to me and said, I've applied here and
I'm not worried about college application fees. How do you support yourself?
I'm a live-in nanny.
You think you have an obligation to support your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
So that the things you bought for her, the few toiletries you bought for her, or paying a cell phone bill, you did that for your daughter because you're her mother. That's what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
The $50 a week that you were getting from her father should have gone to the Suter family.
He never asked for support, or I would have given it to him.
Why does he have to ask? Did you ever say to him, Ms. Hebb, Mr. Suter, I get money for Nikki's support from her father. It's not right that I keep it. I'm going to turn it over to you when I get it.
No, ma'am, I didn't. I instead, like I said, whenever she would call and said that she needed things, I would take care of her.
Well, that's what you did for her, because you're her mother. She has two parents, a mother and a father. You're the mother. You work. If you have to take care of a few items, if you happen to take care of a few items for your daughter, that's very nice of you. The other $50 a week, if her father knew that she wasn't living in your home, did your father know you weren't living?
He just found out recently because I didn't have his number to get a hold of him.
If her father knew, I guarantee you, her father wouldn't have said, well, I'm going to send her money.
Her father has known. She's gone and seen him since she's lived with Mr. Suter.
I'm just curious. Not that I'm taking this for the truth of what you're going to tell me, but just my own curiosity. Did he ever say to you, if he knew that she wasn't living with you, I'd like to send the money to Mr. Suter?
No, ma'am.
Never did?
No, ma'am.
He must have had a lobotomy. Ms. Hebb, this is not a difficult case. It doesn't even test my academic prowess. The last 2 years, your daughter has been living with the Suter family, and you've collected $50 a week, roughly $2,500 a year. The Suters are suing you for $5,000, because that's approximately what you've collected over the time that your daughter has been living with the Suters from her father, and that money should have been turned over to the Suter family immediately. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's all. Make those college applications.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Juanita Nuno is suing her daughter, Carolyn Torres, for a loan to bail her grandson out of jail. Juanita says she may lose her home to foreclosure.
Ms. Nuno, this is your daughter, and according to your complaint, you made your daughter a series of loans. She hasn't paid you back. Your daughter says, yes, it's true that you gave her some money. They were gifts. You do that to all your relatives, and you're singling her out for repayment of these gifts because she had a fight with your other daughter. Is that right, Ms. Torres?
Yeah, that's right.
What did I just say?
I owe her money, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. They're gifts. To me, they're gifts. I heard what you just said.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Did you have anything to drink today?
No, I don't drink.
You use any drugs today?
No, I don't.
Well, then explain to me what your problem is, Ms. Torres.
I don't have a problem.
Who is that?
My kid's father.
Do you live with him?
When I want to, I don't know, when I want him there, I guess.
Step up, sir. What's your name?
Anthony Torres.
How long have you been with Miss Torres?
About 20, 21 years, off and on.
Do you work?
Yeah.
Your wife suffer from a disability?
No.
Well, is there something wrong with her today? She seems to be out of sorts today.
Well, because I don't think she should be suing me, that's why.
Why did you agree to come here?
I don't know.
Did you discuss coming here with your wife, Mr. Torres?
Yeah.
Why did she come?
Because it's a lawsuit and she needs to come.
Juanita Nuno says her daughter, Carolyn Torres, owes for a loan for bail. Juanita says she posted her grandson's bond after he was arrested for burglary.
Now, if you've been with Mrs. Torres for 20-some-odd years, then you are the father of this young man who got himself into trouble last year?
Yes, I am.
And the first loan, according to you, Ms. Nuno, was for bail for your grandson.
Yes, it was.
What was he arrested for?
Jack broke into a school.
So he was arrested for burglary?
Yeah.
Did you call your mother and ask her for bail?
Yeah.
What did
But
you
he
say
called
to
her
her?
first, though. He called and I called after.
Who called?
I think my son called first, and then my niece called me, and then I called her back.
And when you called your mother, what did you say to her?
Bail him out. I don't have the money.
And what did she say to you?
She said, what happened? I explained to her what happened. That Jack broke into a school, so can you bail him out? She does everybody else, so I figured she'd do him.
Why didn't you bail him out?
Like I said, I don't have the money.
Well, how do you support yourself?
By his child support checks.
Well, you live together. Why does he send you child support checks?
Well, when I want to get, I'll call him. He doesn't really live with me.
Miss Nuno, you really expect her to pay you back?
Yes.
From what?
She applied for Social Security, and she was supposed to...
What was the nature of her disability?
She has arthritis in the spine. That's inherited. It comes down the line. All of us have it. So she applied for Social Security disability.
Yeah.
And they were going to grant it to her. All she needed to do was take a physical exam.
So you expected her to pay you back out of her disability from the government?
Well, not only from that, but from my son-in-law. And I believe him because he never lies.
Well, did he promise to pay you back?
He said he would pay me back. He would pay the bonds people, so that would be good enough.
Is that right, sir?
Yeah, that's right.
So why didn't you pay her?
I intend to, I just haven't had the chance to do it.
It's a year and a half ago, almost 2 years. When are you going to do it?
As soon as I can.
So after they didn't pay you the $1,600, 6 months later you gave her another $2,000. You want to tell me why?
Because I beat her daughter. That's why. That's exactly what happened. She lent me money to move on because I beat her daughter for stealing my child support check.
No, Judge Judy.
Yes, that's what happened.
I billed Anthony out in November.
You got $1,600, Ms. Nuno. What's the $2,000 for?
For getting me out of her house. I was staying with her for 2 months.
Why were you staying there for 2 months?
Because my stupid son, we lost our house in Redlands, so I had to go move in with her because of what he did.
How many other children did you move in with? 5. How old are your children?
15, 14, 10, and 3. And my son, Anthony, that's 18. He's 18.
You have a 3-year-old child?
Yes, I do.
How did you, with your terrible disability, have a 3-year-old child?
I guess. I don't know how. Well, how else am I going to have a kid?
Judge Judy, you wouldn't believe it. You will not believe this. I had her put in a convent in Mexico. I had tried to educate her day one, and you know...
That's what she went wrong when she sent me to Mexico. She never should have ever sent me to Mexico when I was 10 years old. Never.
Do you have anything you want to say to me, sir?
He didn't say nothing.
No.
I'm not speaking to you.
Well, he's not going to say anything.
I'm not...
He'll still won't say nothing, though.
I'm not speaking to you.
Well, I'm speaking to you. I'm telling you, he won't say nothing.
Listen to me very carefully, Miss Torres. You've already shamed yourself in front of a lot of people.
I don't care.
You have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 10-year-old who can all understand everything that's going around them. I feel very sorry for them, and I guarantee you that if you live alone with your children now, I'm putting in a call to social services to go and monitor your home if these children are in fact living with you. Are they living with her? Are the children living with her?
Yeah.
Well, somebody's going to monitor it. You're not there, is that right?
Most of the time, no.
Listen, Miss Nuno, there is no question in my mind that having spent 10 minutes with your daughter, you had no reasonable expectation that that $2,000 was going to get repaid to you. Maybe the bail money, because you say that you had confidence in your son-in-law, and he says that he agreed to pay you back and he just hasn't gotten around to it yet. Mr. Torres, you have to find something to do with your time other than make children, sir. You have enough children. You have 5 children. And based upon what I've heard, you're not doing too well. And neither are your children. So you have to find some other way of occupying your spare time, like getting a second job, so you can support everybody, so they can all live together and not scam the government anymore. Do you understand me, Mr. Torres? This is all one huge scam you've been living with her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,600. That's all. Step out.
Deborah Skalkos is suing 9-year-old Russell Boucher Jr. and his mother, Christy, for damage to her car. Deborah says Russell dinged it with a shopping cart.
Miss Skalkos, is that right?
Yes.
According to your complaint, this young man right here accidentally dented your car with a shopping cart.
Correct.
You believed he and his mother were responsible.
Correct.
For the dent. Miss Boucher says neither she nor her son are responsible for the dent on your car. So tell me where you were when this happened and when.
Okay. On the evening of April 20th, I was driving my car in a shopping area, and as I was getting ready to cross a speed bump, this little boy here, he yells, "Watch out," and a shopping cart came crashing into my car. And he says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, you know, it slipped out of my hand." And there were cars behind me, and I wanted to pull into a parking stall to get out and look at my car. And I did, and there was a small dent in my car, and then I tried to find the little boy, and he was gone, and I didn't know what store he went into.
Okay, so you did not see him with the shopping cart in his hand?
I saw him pulling out the shopping carts, and it came crashing into my car.
Madam, I want to know exactly what it is that you saw. Don't make anything up.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
I read your complaint, and what you just testified to is different from your complaint. What you just testified to was you saw the little boy.
Yes, I did.
And you saw the cart hit your car.
Correct.
But you never saw his hand on the cart.
Correct.
And he said to you, I'm sorry, it slipped out of my hand.
Correct.
Is that what you saw?
That's what happened, yes.
Is that what you saw, is my question. So you didn't see him trying to pull the cart out of the long row of carts, and it
Correct.
slipped out of his hand, right?
Right.
All right, because that's what you wrote in your complaint. So that was a mistake. You were mistaken about that.
Yes.
Should not be mistaken about that, because you signed it and you read it. You say, I noticed a young boy standing on the sidewalk and pulling a shopping cart out of the cart holder. And my question to you is, you didn't see that.
I didn't see him pull the cart out.
All you saw was him standing there,
Yes.
the cart coming towards you,
Correct.
and the cart hitting your car.
Correct.
And then he yelled, watch out.
Yes, he did.
And then, according to you, he said, I'm so sorry, ma'am.
Yes, he did.
He didn't say, I'm sorry, it slipped out of my hand. That's not what you said in your complaint.
But that is what he said. He said it slipped out of my hand.
Okay. Tell me your name.
Russell Voucher,
Russell. How old are you?
9.
Have you ever watched this program?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How many times have you watched it?
A couple of times.
And I think that your mom is very proud and very supportive of you, right?
Yes.
And I think you're a nice boy.
Thank
So you're going to tell me the truth today about what happened that day, even if it was a little different from what you told your mother. Got it?
Yes.
Because otherwise, bad things are going to happen here.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. Now, your mom went in shopping,
Yes.
and at some point she told you that she needed another cart.
Yes.
So what did you do?
I went out to get another cart, and when I went out the exit, there was one right next to the exit on the left-hand side. So then I was grabbing the cart, and then I saw it going. I ran after it, and I yelled,
Now you
"Watch
grabbed
out."
the cart. Stop right there.
Okay.
You grabbed the cart.
Mm-hmm.
How did you grab it? Show me with
this.
So you grabbed it and you touched the handlebars?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then you tried to wheel it around?
Yes.
And then what happened?
And then when I saw that shopping cart going,
So it slipped out of your hand?
because like there was 2 carts. I was grabbing one out of the cart stack, and then there was one on the side of the exit. I was grabbing the one out of the cart stack. I didn't grab it completely. It was halfway out, but it wasn't that one that went. It was the one next to the exit that went.
Okay,
And I
but you
ran
touched
after
it. Your cart touched it. The one that you were pulling touched it.
Yes.
And then you went inside. When you went inside, did you tell your mother?
Yes.
What did you tell your mother?
That I saw a cart that was rolling down. I started running after it, and then I couldn't catch it. I said, "Watch out!" And then that's all I told her.
But you didn't tell her about the fact that you were touching the cart with the other cart, and that's when it started to roll down.
No.
All right, she's going to love you anyway. Right, Mrs. Boucher?
Yes.
Not hard. You sent him outside to do a job that perhaps he wasn't equipped to do. I certainly have some trouble trying to get those carts out of those cart holders, too, when we go shopping. You pull one, and all of a sudden you get 30. You don't want 30, all you want is one. But I'm very glad you told the truth today. Okay?
Yes.
Good. Got it, Mrs. Boucher? It's a little different.
Right.
Not a major deal. Good for you.
Thank you.
Told the truth today? If you had told your mother the truth right then and there, we might have avoided this whole problem. So you have to remember that for the future, okay?
Yes.
How much is the cost to fix your car?
$601.
Wow, let me see. What kind of a car do you have?
I have a 2004 Toyota Highlander.
Let me see. You have pictures of the car?
Yes.
There's a ding in it.
Yes. That's it.
There are 2 dings.
The shopping cart, it dinged it.
Well, I'm going to give you some advice, okay? I also have a very nice car. And somebody last week dinged my brand new car. And we called the ding doctor. And for $150, the ding doctor comes to your house and pulls out the ding. Not 600, 150. And I am sure, where do you live?
In Rancho Cucamonga.
Oh, that's in California.
Yes.
Where every person has 9 cars. I guarantee you, you will find a ding doctor for $300 that will come and pull out these 2 dings in your car. Okay? Not 600. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $300. That's all. Thank you.
Lisa White is suing business owner Susan York for the cost to repair her vehicle. Lisa claims Susan's son, 8-year-old Dylan, hit it with a rock.
Miss White, it is your complaint that Miss York's little boy, I assume this little boy, was throwing rocks in the street, and one of the rocks hit your car, causing some damage.
That's correct.
And you want his mother to pay for the damage. Miss York says she doesn't think her son was responsible for that. He was merely rolling rocks, although she wasn't there. She says that it was really your conduct that was outrageous on that day. So tell me when this happened.
It was approximately 7 to 7:15 in the morning on May 12th. I was on my way to work. I was traveling down East Yacht Drive.
Where is that?
It's in Oak Island, North Carolina. As I approached the intersection where the children were, they were in the street.
How many children were in the street?
Approximately 5, 2 boys and 2 or 3 girls.
I assume they were waiting for the school bus?
That's correct.
Okay.
As I approached, I noticed that they were playing in the street, so I slowed down. They moved to the shoulder of the intersection. One little boy was throwing stones into the other empty lot across the street, and as I approached, Dylan threw a rock at my car, and I heard it hit.
You saw him do that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you stopped your car, and what did you do?
I got out, and I'm like, you, come here, what's your name? And I said, look at what you've done to my car. I said, where do you live? He said, down the street. I said, you get in my car, and I'm taking you to your mother to show her what you're doing at the bus stop. Well, he had extra stones in his other hand, and he threw those down. I said, no, you pick those up, you put them in my car, and we're going now. So he got into the car, and I took him straight to his mother's house. I told him to go upstairs and take the stones with him to show whoever was there. I didn't know which parent was home. I said, take those and show them what you've been throwing at my car, and send them downstairs to talk to me. And she came down to talk with me.
And what did she say?
Well, she asked him, did he do it? And why did you do that? I told you not to throw stones. I told her.
What did he say?
He's like, well, it was an accident. I'm like, no, it was not. I saw him do it.
He said to his mother it was an accident.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Stand up next to your mother. Dylan, how could it be an accident if you were throwing the stones?
I was rolling them across the road, and she was going like 70.
Dylan, I don't want your nose to get long. I want you to tell me how it's an accident that stones that you were rolling on the ground hit somebody's car.
I rolled it, it bounced up on another
You rolled it and it bounced up? A rock?
It hit another rock and it bounced.
That's a fib, Dylan. You're not supposed to fib anytime, especially not when you're in court, because that's a fib. If your mother doesn't know it's a fib, I know it's a fib. You and your friends were throwing rocks, right?
Yes.
And one of the rocks hit her car.
Yes.
See how easy that was?
Yes.
What your complaint is, Miss York, and one that I quelling, is that Miss White exercised very poor judgment in putting your son in her car.
This is correct.
Because I don't think North Carolina is any different from any other place in this country. You don't take somebody else's child and put them in your car. That's very poor judgment, Miss White. I don't think there would have been anything wrong in you saying, if you live right down the street, you go right home, I'm going to follow you, so that you would know where he lived. But you don't take anybody else's child and put them in your car. Now, can I see a picture of the damage to your car?
I do have a photo, but you cannot see the actual dents or chips in the car, in the paint.
Well, it should just be one.
No, there's actually several. I have a police report stating that the officer noted 6 chips areas.
Well, he didn't chip it 6 times. He threw one rock. That's according to you.
He had several stones in his other hand. I don't know how many stones actually hit.
I don't know how many children were involved in throwing stones, but you said to me, I saw him throw a stone. I heard it hit my car. There's a difference in hearing 1 or hearing 6.
Your Honor, may I say something?
Mm-hmm.
When she drove to my house, I saw one little dot, and then in return, it ended up being dents. I never saw a dent. She even herself said it probably won't be much.
Well, what she's suing you for is $300.
Yes, ma'am.
Which isn't much. I think what your complaint is, quite frankly, despite the fact that I read your answer, and your answer gave me the same malarkey that he was rolling stones Children don't roll stones. They throw stones at cars. And that's what he did, because that's what he just told me he did.
Right, yes, ma'am.
So you're responsible, because if you want to make sure that your son doesn't do that, and I assume he's done it before, right?
Not that I'm aware of, no, ma'am.
Never heard of him throwing rocks before?
Not at cars.
At anything?
I mean, he's a little boy. I guess he does throw rocks, yes.
Okay, well, if he's a little boy and he throws rocks, then you should be out there with him waiting for the school bus.
Your Honor, I would like to say when he came home from school, I had asked him what happened. And he admitted that he had been rolling rocks.
Rolling rocks doesn't...
Rolling rocks, throwing rocks, and one hit her car. And then he proceeded to show me how she forcefully put him in her car. I have a written statement for...
I don't take statements from people. She had no right to put him in the car, take him in the car, ask him to get into the car, pick him up. Absolutely no right to do that. He wasn't injured. He went off to school that day. Did you go off to school that day?
Yes.
Did you have a good day in school that day?
Yes.
So he wasn't injured, emotionally or physically. But she did the wrong thing, and I've told her she did the wrong thing. So I read her the Riot Act. You still have to pay to have a car fixed.
That's fine.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $300. That's all.
Corey and Tammy Shanks say Corey's ex-girlfriend, Melissa Blankenship, ran his Dodge truck into a mailbox. Melissa is countersuing for the return of furniture.
Mr. Shanks, this lady is your former wife, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But you are now back together and trying to reconcile.
Yes, ma'am.
And Miss Blankenship was your girlfriend
Yes, ma'am.
for a brief period of time.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the complaint, although the complaint is written by your wife, it really has to do with you. So we're going to find out exactly what it's all about. You claim that Miss Blankenship damaged a truck. It was a truck that belonged to you. She hit a mailbox or something with it, is that right?
Yes.
And you want her to pay for the damages to that truck.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Blankenship says that she did, in fact, have an accident with the truck, hit the mailbox, there was some minor damage, she told you about it, and at some point you told her to forget about it because you had moved her in with her children or child?
My child.
With her child into another house that you owned, and she relocated because you were together. Then when you decided to go back to your wife, she was told that she had to vacate the property immediately.
She had exactly a week and a half to clear the vacancy.
And the suggestion is because you told her she had to get out of the house within a week, you told her to just forget about the damage to the truck. When were you divorced, Mr. Shanks?
I was getting ready to go through the divorce in June 2005.
When did you meet Miss Blankenship?
About the same time, about June.
Okay. And when did you purchase the second house?
Obtained the house around June, July, in between there.
And when did Miss Blankenship move into the house with her daughter?
When the house closed, and it was in August.
And that was at your suggestion?
Well...
You were together?
Yes, but, Your Honor, it was more or less where she wanted to more or less move in. You know, she asked me to move in, and the stipulation was she was supposed to obtain the home, take care of everything while I was gone, since I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and she was going to start up a daycare with herself and her witness.
So what you're saying is she moved into the house, but she was supposed to pay all the bills in the house?
No.
From the daycare?
No, it was more or less like she wanted to start up the daycare.
Well, what did that have to do with you, Mr. Shanks?
Well, really, it doesn't, Your Honor.
Well, so then I'm not interested in it if it doesn't have anything to do with you. Okay, so she moved into the house, and when you weren't on the road in your truck, where did you stay?
I only stayed in that home maybe one night.
With her?
Yes, one night.
And you shared a room?
Yes.
Before she moved into the house, where was she living?
She was living in an apartment complex.
How many nights did you spend there?
Maybe 2 at the most, ma'am.
And when you stayed there, did you share a room?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you purchased this new house, was it the idea that you would be living there as a family when you weren't on the road?
No, ma'am.
What was the idea of the new house, sir?
The idea of the new home is I wanted to move away from my old home state where I used to live at, and I just wanted to start over myself. I mean, the only reason I let Miss Blankenship move in was the idea of her wanting to start up the daycare.
Mr. Shanks, you're having second thoughts about this, sir, because of the lady standing next to you. But your conversation to me doesn't make sense. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't make sense that you bought another house in another area and Miss Blankenship was moving in there to start a daycare center. That doesn't make sense, sir. I haven't even asked her anything. So don't try to pull my leg. I don't like it. You get it?
Yes, ma'am.
If you had second thoughts about Miss Blankenship and your relationship and you wanted to go home to your wife, that's fine. But don't lie. I don't like it. Now let's get back to the truck. At the time that Miss Blankenship damaged the truck, she called you. Where were you?
I was out on the road.
And what did she tell you?
That the truck was hit by the mailbox.
No, she didn't say that at all. Don't be a wise guy. What did she tell you?
She told me she hit the mailbox.
That she hit the mailbox, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she apologize?
Yes, she was very apologetic to it, yes.
Now, at that time, had you gone back to your wife yet?
No.
Did you tell her that you were thinking about going back to your wife?
No.
Had you told her that she had to move her property out?
I told her, when I told her to move out the property, and this is going to bring up the daycare again, that she wasn't getting the daycare going, and the home wasn't being taken care of.
When she used your truck, what was she using it for?
In the moving process, I think.
So you were told her to move, in or out?
It was, I'm pretty sure it was in, ma'am.
Were you moving in or out when you were using the truck?
Actually, when I wrecked the truck, he was in town. He asked me to go get jumper cables, I think it was, so he could get his truck jumped because the batteries went dead. So he was in town.
Where was he in town?
He was over by the apartment complex that I used to live at, and I had already moved into the home.
Okay, so that was sometime in August?
Yes.
Now, after you had this problem with the truck, you went into a mailbox.
Right.
Did he ever spend the night with you in the house again?
Yes.
How many times?
I think he was there one more night, and then he left.
After the damage to the truck?
After the damage to the pickup.
Now, did you see the damage to the truck, Mr. Shanks?
Yes, ma'am.
Where was the truck when you saw it?
I'm pretty sure it was at the apartment complex, ma'am.
Apartment complex or the house?
I think it was at the apartment complex.
So it was drivable?
Yes, it was drivable.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding your seeing it at the apartment complex, sir.
I was,
What were you doing there? What were you doing there?
I would think I was getting ready to leave, but I can't recollect it.
What?
In the truck, in my semi.
You mean getting ready to leave her apartment?
Yes. The semi was parked at the apartment.
At her apartment?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what did you say to Miss Blankenship, sir, when she told you that she had had this accident with the truck, and you saw the truck, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you say?
I told her, I said, it needs to be replaced, you need to get it fixed, and it needs to be done. I mean, I was really upset about my truck being wrecked.
Well, it wasn't wrecked, sir, because you said you saw it at the apartment complex. So it wasn't wrecked, it was drivable.
Yes, it was drivable, but the way them Dodges are set up and everything, they've got plastic and little sheet metal and all that stuff on them anymore, and just hitting the mailbox did do a lot of damage to the front of that truck. I mean, it's very noticeable.
You want to show me a picture of it, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
There's also pictures of the mailbox post and at the house where the mailbox sits.
Truck isn't wrecked, sir. It's got a little damage on it. There's some bumper scratches. Big deal. You see what your problem is, sir? First, you moved her out of her apartment with her child into a house that you had purchased. And the plan was for you to live there when you weren't on the road. That was the plan. I mean, that's clear. There's no question about that. Then you decide to get back with your wife. And your wife is irritated that the truck is damaged. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's too bad. What are you mad at her for?
I'm not, ma'am.
Well, you shouldn't be. He's the one who disrupted her life, moved her out of her apartment into a house, and then told her she had to move because he was going back with you. Don't you see who the villain here is? It's not her. Don't you get it? Did I have to explain that to you? No. So why are you here? Over a couple of $100 damage to a truck? He ruined her life. That's not her fault. It's probably yours, too. You get it?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe her when she says that the reason she was moving your truck was because you asked her to go get jumper cables with your truck.
I can't remember that far back, Your Honor.
Well, if you can't remember, she does.
I know the truck was driven without my permission.
That's not true. If you asked her to go get jumper cables, she used your truck. She was living in your house. You were sleeping with her. You had an intimate relationship. Get over it. You made a mistake. And grow up. Now, what stuff did she leave behind in the house?
I've got pictures of the furniture.
And where is the furniture that she left behind?
Is that
Take your hands out of your pockets.
It's at the address of the home in St. Charles.
Where do you want him to deliver your property? He's going to deliver it. He caused the problem, right?
Yes, ma'am.
To Mary's apartment. Miss Kelly's apartment.
All of her property goes back to her. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And you make sure that it gets there. It's your responsibility. You had a change of heart, sir. You have to behave like a grown-up. Just because you act irresponsibly most of the time with the women in your life doesn't mean you're going to act irresponsibly here. I mean, I read the papers. You relocated this lady and her child with a promise that you were going to have a life together, that she was going to start a business in the home. And because you had a change of heart, you told her, sorry, you have to move. Now, you moved once, now you have to move again. Where did you move to? Back to the complex?
No, I had lost my apartment because of him promising we were going to have a life together.
Where are you living now?
I've relocated closer to home, closer to my parents.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I say something?
Yes.
She spent 2 nights in her car because she had nowhere to go.
My daughter stayed with a friend because I did not want to be a burden on anyone else. I let my daughter stay so she would not be without.
How old is she?
She's 11. She was 10 at the time.
You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
She gets all of her property back. Make sure that that happens, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Take care of the truck yourself. It's the least you could do. And tell your wife to get over it. You got it. Goodbye.
Rachel Rhodes is suing her ex-boyfriend, Eric Nelson, for the return of payments and repair costs for a vehicle he financed. Eric says the car was repossessed because Rachel missed payments.
Miss Rose, Mr. Nelson is former boyfriend of yours.
Correct.
And he financed a car. He was responsible for the payments on the car, but it was your car.
Correct.
The agreement was you were to make the payments on the car. When the car was paid off, it would be yours.
Correct.
Well, what happened is that you missed some payments on the car. Couple. 2, maybe 3. And the car was repossessed by the company. Is that right so far?
So far, I made a payment. I had placed it on the drop box.
I don't want to hear that you made the payment. You placed it on the drop box. They didn't cash the check, but then you missed 2 more payments. You missed payments, correct?
Yes.
And the car was repossessed. You called up the company, and the company said, well, if you make up all the payments that you missed, we'll give you the car back. You were prepared to make up the payments, right?
Correct.
But Mr. Nelson says, I'm not going to sign off on you getting the car back because I don't trust that you're going to continue to make the payments on the car. Let them take back the car. I'll make up the missed payments, and I just want this off my record so I don't have to worry about it anymore. So you're suing him for not making it easy for you to get the car back from the company. That's your lawsuit?
Yes.
Lawsuit, Ms. Rhodes.
Well, Your Honor, I have the paperwork pertaining to the money order that I had purchased and I had put in the drop box. After the 29th of December, I had called and checked the status of the money order. The money order had not been cashed.
Ms. Rhodes, you don't seem to get me. After you had this alleged mishap with a money order that you allegedly put in a drop box at the car company, which they didn't cash, you then missed 2 more payments.
Ma'am, the payment was for, the money order was for $250.
You then missed, according to your own statement, 2 more payments because you had trouble. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct.
Well, that's what you wrote here. That's what you wrote here. How many more months of payments did you miss?
I only missed, to my knowledge, I missed 3 payments, which is a month worth of payments.
You missed 3 payments, and the car was repossessed.
That's correct, but as far as I know, I thought the payments were current.
Well, they weren't current, and you have no cause of action against Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson doesn't have to make it easy for you to get your car back from the company. That's not his responsibility. Your responsibility is to see to it that the payments are made on time, and they are made to the right place, and to check and see if they were cashed, and to check and see that his credit is not at risk. That's your job. He was being very nice to you, but things transpired, which we'll get to in a moment, because you have a counterclaim that suggested to him that you were not particularly a trustworthy person. So he wasn't going to make it easy for you to get the car back, and he has no legal obligation to do that. And this is, of course, a court of law. And in a court of law, he is not under legal obligation to get you your car back from the finance company after you missed, I don't care if you missed 1 payment. According to you, you missed 3.
Well, can I say this?
Sure.
If I wasn't such a trustworthy person, I was able to pay the money to get the car back, but he didn't want to do that. But he told me that I can give him the $500 so that I can drive another car of his that he had parked.
Well, let me tell you why he thinks that you're not particularly a trustworthy person. He has a counterclaim for the missed payments that he had to make up.
Yes, ma'am.
But more importantly, his counterclaim asks for money for a paternity test because you had a child, she believed to be his child. He put his name on the child's birth certificate. He paid child support. I don't know whether he saw the child regularly.
He paid child support? No.
Did you pay any child support, sir, to her?
No, ma'am, I haven't paid to her because I have a lawyer at this time.
Were you living together when the child was born?
No, ma'am.
Did she tell you the child was yours?
Yes, ma'am.
And you believed her?
Yes, ma'am.
And you took a paternity test?
Yes, ma'am.
And the paternity test said the child could not have been yours?
0% probability.
That's why he doesn't trust you.
Okay. Can I say this? Yes. He took a paternity test. I didn't know nothing about the paternity test. I wasn't there when he swiped my daughter's mouth. I don't know. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he could have, I don't know.
He could have, but I think you certainly have to go to court to find out. Have you been to court yet?
Yes, we've been to court.
And what happened when you went to court?
We went to court